buy the best maps in 2025, you're doing it wrong. You're still using this to navigate life. Embarrassing.
I'm so bored right now, and I truly hate the way it feels. You're probably bored too. You clicked on this video trying to feel less bored, and all you've got is a guy scrolling on his phone alone in a room. Here, let me see if I can help with that. Is this better? Good. It's not just you and me, it's everyone. Boredom is on the rise, even at a time when we're in the golden age of content. Boredom isn't simple. It's not trivial, it's not benign. It's actually a painful emotion that quietly haunts our sense of meaning and purpose. It's more like pain or disgust. We've been going deep on this. There's a lot of great new science. My producer Alex read like 5 books on the topic. In all of this literature, I am starting to see a clear story that explains why all of us are more bored than ever. But I'm also seeing something that I didn't expect, something that's quietly hidden within the feeling of boredom. How this really unpleasant feeling, boredom, might actually be key to living a more purposeful, creative life. Your life is like a road trip. Stick with me while I build this analogy because it's actually really useful for understanding the real meaning of boredom. It's a road trip in the dark. In this analogy, the most important parts are, first off, your headlights. This is your attention, your ability to pay attention and what you pay attention to. And the second most important part is this fuel tank. We're gonna look at this a lot. This represents your sense of meaning and purpose. It helps motivate you, pushes you along the journey of your life. Attention and meaning are vital for how humans navigate their lives, how they make decisions on where to go with the constraints of their everyday experience. These determine the route that you take on this road trip. So, you're going along your life, you're taking turns, you're making decisions on how to spend your time. You spend time with friends, you pay attention to this, and look, your tank is filling up with meaning and purpose. For a lot of us, friendship is fuel. You go for a walk, maybe in nature, you listen to music. That is meaningful to you. Maybe you watch a good movie, you shine your attention on that, and that is actually pretty fulfilling. But life is heavy and hard, and sometimes your fuel runs out. Your attention fractures or fades, and then this happens. Lights out. This is boredom, the state where your sense of purpose and meaning is on empty, and consequently you don't really have the ability to muster the energy to pay attention to something that would change the situation. Real quick, before we go on, have you noticed that one way you might cure your boredom is email? Knocking out a few emails makes you feel productive, doesn't take that much work sometimes. But if you look closely, you might note that a lot of the emails you're knocking out are actually junk, like they shouldn't have been there. You don't want them there. You never signed up for them. This same thing extends to robocalls and all of those text messages you get, and even junk mail being sent to your house. It's sort of a constant low-level buzz, and one that I kind of hate. I'm telling you all this because it has to do with our sponsor today, Incogni. Incogni has woken me up to just how extensive a industry the data broker market is. These are companies who make a lot of money off of collecting your information, your address, your shopping habits, your birthday, your court records, and selling it to anyone willing to pay. Marketers, credit agencies, insurance companies, you name it. I actually heard about Incogni a few years ago. I signed up, I gave them permission to act on my behalf, and then they went out to these data brokers and say to them in some legal language, hey, take Johnny off your lists. And it has worked hundreds of times, actually, automatically without me having to do anything. I actually just get to sit back and look at this fancy looking dashboard, see the status of all of the requests that have been made and the ones that have been successful, which at this point, there's like hundreds of them. In fact, let me do a little update right now. Incogni. What is my current number of? Dude, 744 total requests to these data brokers. And of those, 612 have been completed. That's very satisfying. 132 are in progress. Man, this is great. Just this month, there have been more than 10. You just see all of this. It's very satisfying. They just launched this unlimited plan, which now allows you to request removal from any site, including those creepy people search sites that post your info online for anyone to see. So if you want to try this out, go to incogni.com/JohnnyHarris. Clicking that link helps support this channel. If you use the code JohnnyHarris at checkout, you get 60% off the annual plan. I do the annual plan because, like I said, like every month there are more lists that I get added to, and Incogni scans them and takes me off of them. So thank you, Incogni, for sponsoring today's video, for allowing us to do this work. With that, let's dive back into why we are so bored. The most surprising thing that I've learned so far while researching this is that boredom is not this trivial, mundane feeling. It's actually a pretty strong emotional experience, and it kind of sucks.
I define boredom as meaning withdrawal, as a sense of discomfort, telling you that your need for personal meaning is not being met.
Your brain's way of telling you need to change what you're doing because what you're doing is unsatisfying. You find it hard to focus.
And that feeling of like, I can't do anything about this. I don't have any, agency here, or what's the meaning of all of this? You're just kind of stuck there.
I'd say that the experience of boredom is an experience of unfreedom, an experience of being trapped in a present without meaning.
Time seems to slow.
You're in a situation where I don't care about this. This really doesn't stimulate me in any way.
Tolstoy described boredom as like a desire of desires.
I also remember a friend of mine. He worked with the postal services when we were students, and his job was to take mail bags and turn them inside out to see if there was any letters remaining in there. And one day he told me, yesterday at work, I just started weeping. I mean, this was the myth of Sisyphus, the eternal recurrence of the same. There is no end to it. There will always be another mailbag coming in that would have to be turned inside out. No progression, just the same over and over again. And he started weeping at work. Though being a good Protestant, he continued to turn mailbags inside out while he was weeping.
For me, this happens usually on a Saturday at like 3 p.m. This is when my kids are occupied playing with friends or playing Nintendo or whatever. I have time. I usually don't have time. But Saturday at 3 p.m., I have precious free time that I don't get during the week. And I have all this stuff that I want to do. But then this emotion just hits me. This feeling that I don't really want to do anything. Like I can't really muster the motivation to do any of it. And suddenly things get really dark for me. I start to question everything. I start to question my life choices. I'm angry at myself for not doing things that I know some part of me wants to do. I'm wondering if I've made the right life choices. So I know this feeling well, but before reporting this story, I never called it boredom. I kind of thought it was like some flash of depression or restlessness, or maybe it was my ADD or something. Boredom always just felt like this thing that like there's nothing to do and so I'm bored, but that's actually not what's happening here.
Many would call it an emotional state that has cognitive and physiological correlates.
Boredom is the feeling of thinking. It's an affective response to underutilization of our capacities, of our cognitive skills, right? So when you're bored, you're having that affective reaction to the fact that you're not using your brain as well as you could be.
So yeah, boredom is an emotion and it's very uncomfortable. But luckily, I've got a very quick little medicine that is in my pocket at all times. It's not in my pocket right now. Uh-oh, where's my little medicine? It's a small computer device that was probably made in China or India, and it's got software on it that numbs my boredom. Some people call it a phone, but a phone is a thing that was invented like 100 years ago where people talk to each other. Where is it? Where is my phone? Oh, here she is. She was here the whole time. Ah, my precious.
Now with the latest nuclear missile test conducted just hours.
About 3 years ago, I was cooking rice in my kitchen. We tested different questions. And some people would say,
Establishes.
Oh, man, I love TikTok and all short form video that I consume to cure my boredom. And to be clear, this video will critique all of this and tell us about how the brain is kind of getting messed up with some of the stuff, but boy, it's fun while it lasts. Anyway, this device is very useful for curing my boredom, and I use it Saturdays at 3 p.m. when I'm feeling bored. And yes, later I will show you the studies that unpack boredom and phone use. But for now, I was actually curious if other people experience this the way I do, because it's a deeply personal and emotional experience. And so I asked my team,
So I usually get bored when I get home from work and I've done all of the things that I wanted to do, like eat dinner, hang out with friends, go to the gym, do a hobby, and there's still time left over somehow. I get this really uncomfortable feeling, which is boredom. That's this like existential gut punch. I think about, what am I doing with my life? And I want to crawl out of my own skin. Typically I will numb it with TikTok or playing video games, but sometimes I will sit in it, sit in the discomfort and think about my life. But that is a lot more work and exhausting.
Ironically though, I have noticed that I find my phone to be a sort of boring replacement for the boredom. There's this sort of instant gratification with social media that feels like it's the addictive version of boredom. And yeah, that is kind of scary.
Okay, before we get back to the car analogy, which is very good and very useful, I promise, I want to explain what I've learned about why. Why does boredom even exist inside of our brains? And it turns out that it's actually a very natural biological signal that we developed a long time ago. What's happening when we're bored is a bunch of brain regions are coming together to tell us that we need to do something different with our situation. One of the defining traits of human beings is that we are restless. We need purpose and meaning to fuel our actions. And this has been one way that humans have been pushed to create and change their natural situation, not just for more resources like all animals do, but also in search of meaning. We're these self-aware apes who are able to tell stories of meaning and purpose to each other. And we ourselves are kind of characters in our own story. It's a major reason why humans have been able to cooperate in large numbers with each other, looking towards stories like corporations or religions or countries. All of these are meaningful stories that bind us together to cooperate and change our situation. So a lot of experts now think that boredom is this emotional cue that is pushing us to do something different with our lives, to deliver on that need for meaning. But boredom today is pretty different. In fact, in the old days, most people didn't have time to get bored.
It's typical for traditional societies that you don't have to spend a lot of time thinking about what to care about because it's already defined for you.
Let's do one of my favorite things and rewind and see what my little road trip analogy would have looked like if I lived 500 years ago. So I'm a farmer. Most of us would have been farmers, FYI. And I spend most of my time working on the farm because if I don't, my family and I will die. So my attention is locked in to kind of one high stakes activity that defines my life. Let's look down at my meaning and purpose fuel tank. Oh, whoa, it's doing great. And look, you can see why. Here on the farm, my sense of purpose and meaning flows in abundance from my family, my belonging to a community in which I was born that has well-defined culture and rituals that my ancestors have been doing for thousands of years, and perhaps most of all, I have a clear existential story in the form of religion. This makes death and suffering not so bad, and it fills me with a bigger purpose. This stuff is like rocket fuel for our sense of meaning and belonging and purpose. Now, it doesn't mean life was easy, not at all, but it does mean that we didn't get bored. We didn't have time to get bored, and we didn't have any lack of meaning and purpose. It was all kind of automated for us by our culture.
I think that the experience of boredom was certainly there in traditional or pre-modern societies, but it really gains traction in modernity.
The word has maybe not been around as long as we might imagine, but that doesn't mean that the concept and the experience and the feeling isn't ancient.
Boredom was more of a privilege for those who were at the royal courts, the clergy, and so on.
Rich aristocrats were the rare human beings that had time on their hands. The other group were monks who had quite a bit of time before the rest of us. And in fact, they had a word to describe this feeling of boredom, called it akadia, a lack of motivation to fulfill your purpose, or in this case, your duties to God. Christians would frame this early concept of boredom as a dangerous sin that could kill your faith. They would nickname it the noonday demon, the most dangerous of all the demons because from boredom stemmed many other sinful behaviors. And they were kind of onto something, as we will see in the scientific literature very soon. French monks updated the interpretation to a desire to escape the present, a tiredness, and a hunger for variety. But then you get to like the 1600s and things start to change, at least in Europe, as people move to cities. They're working in factories, they're doing repetitive work, they have less and less freedom and autonomy and purpose, and they're getting bored.
the words for boredom in different languages. For the most part, they pop up in the 17th century, around there in most languages.
You can see this in like the people who've tracked all the etymology and these words that have been used in different languages. Here's the usage in Spanish over time. Here it is in French, German, and here it is in English. People start to use the verb bore as a verb in letters and literature in the late 1700s, back when London looked like this.
Needed words to describe an emotion that had become quite a lot more common. In modernity, boredom became available for everybody. It became democratized.
Okay, the history part's over. Now let's look at this part of the graph, this rise. Boredom is surging, and kind of weird because it's surging at a time when we have like more amazing, exciting experiences and content to watch than ever before. That is the mystery at the heart of this video, and one I promise I will answer before we are done. Okay, well, one thing is for certain. My life does not look like this anymore. We're not on the farm anymore, filled with meaning from our culture and religion. First off, our map is kind of full of way more possibilities. We're not just going in one predetermined path. I have a million possible routes. And look at my purpose fuel tank down here. I've lost some very important sources of meaning. I don't have religion anymore, which is a huge hit to my sense of purpose and higher meaning. I'm a transplant in a big city, in a highly individualistic country, so I don't have anywhere near the sense of community and old culture that my ancestors had. This may be different for you if you live in a small town in Europe or Vietnam and you are continuing traditions that your ancestors did. My ancestors left their traditions and came to a new world to start new, so yeah, I lost that part. Now, I do have family. That is a massive source of very deep meaning for me. But if I want to fill my tank with meaning, I gotta kind of do it on my own. I have to create my own sense of purpose and meaning, which, to be clear, is a really great thing. Like, I get to determine how I live my life, how I raise my kids, what I do religiously or not religiously, community, and what people I invite into my community. That sense of freedom is wonderful. My point here is that a lot of us don't have our sense of meaning and purpose sort of automated for us like our ancestors did. And that is a major reason why we get bored. Oh, and not to mention that our meaning tanks are now much larger and our expectations kind of full all of the time.
We expect, or could perhaps even say demand, that life should be filled to the brim with meaning at all occasions. We have very little tolerance for these gaps of emptiness in our existence, in which nothing really happens. We're having trouble dealing with those.
Pair that with the fact that there's been an assault on my attention abilities thanks to all these flashing buttons and viral videos, and you can see why sometimes this happens. The car goes dark. It's 3 p.m. on a Saturday, and I'm stuck. I don't have the attention and the purpose to go anywhere. I'm bored, and it feels pretty horrible. Okay, this is the most important part of the video, I would say, because I just spent all this time giving you the history, building this car analogy, but the car analogy really starts to like pay off from here forward. And this is the part of the video where we see how boredom can be good, how this can actually be a hopeful thing. It's not all bad. It can actually be the most important thing for helping you live a more meaningful life. So let me show you. Okay, so I'm bored. I'm stuck without meaning and the ability to pay attention to anything. And for those who need a quick 45-second grounding in the actual neuroscience so that you don't think I'm just winging it with this analogy, here it goes. When scientists put people in a room and make them watch a boring video like this one of two guys hanging laundry, the participants' brains look like this. I should have printed it in color, but probably seen it in color on your video. Lucky you. Boredom. That's what your brain looks like when you're bored. It activates all of these regions that are associated with daydreaming, mind wandering, and thinking about the past and future. Nostalgia. Something I'm very into, actually. Look at this. This is a brain that is in big picture mind wandering mode. Default mode network is technically what it's called. But if you go deeper into the center of the brain, you will see that the part of the brain that drives me to pay attention, to make decisions, is anti-correlated. It's kind of turned off. It's not in sync. So I'm feeling all nostalgic about my life story and the meaning behind everything, but it's paired with this inability to channel my attention to make decisions that are meaningful to me. Learning all of this was actually very helpful for me to understand why my 3 p.m. Saturday boredom is so existential feeling. It actually like feels like really terrible. Like I start to question everything. I'm thinking about my past, my future. I now understand why. Now, there's way more science and study on this. I'm going to leave all the sources in the sources doc that is in the description. But just know that my car analogy is grounded in all of this. Let's get back to the car. So we're here in the dark car. We're bored. We're out of gas. Now let's look what people do when they're in this state. You can do a few things. Number one is you can become really mean on the relation of boredom and sadistic aggression. It's a great paper. So one cure for boredom is sadism, defined here as harming others for pleasure. For some reason, the moment you decide to do harm, look what happens to your car. It revs back up. And weirdly, our purpose tank gets really full. Our attention fires up. Our car is running again. We turn down this sketchy road where we snap at our partner or yell at our kids with the intent to hurt them. We get online and we start stirring people up. We make them angry with bad faith critiques, trying to inflame them, trying to hurt them. This is one that I'm familiar with, not doing it, but receiving it. While this is happening, look at the purpose fuel tank. It is full to the brim. So the monks were right. There is a noonday demon within boredom. The way this looks in the studies is that they put people at a table with worms and a coffee grinder. Bored people are more likely to take these worms and grind them up in the coffee grinder for no other reason other than to cure their boredom. And they even gave these worms names to humanize them so that it would kind of seem even more cruel. Names like Toto, Tifi, Kiki. Oh, and if you're concerned about the worms, the coffee grinders were fake. The worms didn't actually die, but the participants didn't know that. In other studies, bored people are more likely to take away money from random people that they don't even know. Not because they gained anything, just because they were bored, and being mean helped take the edge off. Now, these studies do have some caveats, like some people have a higher propensity to be bored, or some people have a higher propensity to be sadistic. But even controlling for that, when you and I, all of us, the general person is bored, we are more likely to engage in sadistic behavior, to harm others for pleasure. I mean, this is kind of well known. You see headlines every once in a while of like destructive, terrible things that have happened because, quote, someone was bored. A search for meaning and a lack of mobility to create that meaning leads people to turn to destruction, sometimes self-destruction. There's one study where people will sit around and instead of just sit and be bored, they will like zap themselves, hurt themselves.
Even when the only option is to do something that you don't like, that's potentially harmful to you, you'll go ahead and do it anyway as a preference over doing nothing.
This can manifest in other kinds of self-harm for people who are bored, who are looking for like a physical sensation to help distract them from the very uncomfortable mental pain that comes with boredom. It has the function to avoid or escape from aversive emotional experiences. Okay, but this is like the dark side of boredom. You have another choice. Here's the hopeful side of boredom. Rewind the clock, get me back to being bored in that dark car before the trolling and being mean to my kids and partner began. Here we go. We're stuck here. Instead of revving your car up with that demonic fuel that we just saw, you can do the much harder thing. You can get out of the car and push it. You can push it down a road that you know contains some meaningful experience. Here I am pushing mine towards going on a walk in nature. It's actually a lot of effort. I do not want to do this by definition because I am bored. I am manually pushing it. But as I push, my mind is kind of in this big picture place. Remember the default mode network? I'm thinking about the past and the future, about the meaning of my life. I'm feeling things and reading my thoughts in a way that I usually don't get to. And look what happens when I get close. This worked. My car fires back up, and yes, it took some effort, but my purpose tank is filling up. My attention and my ability to keep it is flickering back on. I'm going back to things that bring me purpose without having to harm anyone. And in fact, the benefit of all of this is I'm now more in touch with my sense of meaning and purpose because I've had to sit with it. I've had to struggle through not feeling it and contemplate what meaning is for me. What do I actually want to do with my life? So I get back in the car and I'm rethinking my route on this map, what turns I want to take. And to stretch this analogy even further, I'm stronger. I'm stronger because I got out and pushed my car, so like my muscles are stronger. Next time I get bored, I have the mental muscles to push through. And this is why some studies, not all, demonstrate a statistically significant correlation between boredom and creativity. Being bored makes you more creative, according to some of these studies. Which gets to answering another question I've had for a long time, which is why some cultures have entire concepts that embrace this idea of boredom. Il dolce far niente is an Italian phrase that translates into the sweetness of doing nothing. The Dutch have this word niksen, I think that's how you say it, which is like the verb to nothing. The practice of intentionally embracing a state of boredom and seeing the benefits from it. There's an entire religion or spiritual tradition, I guess, Taoism, that is dedicated to embracing non-action in the name of realigning your actions in harmony with your values. And remember, our biology gave us boredom for a reason. It is a very important part of being humans who are driven by meaning and who are always looking for ways to chase after what is meaningful to them.
Living with it, dealing with it, actually creates a space in which you can actually have an encounter with yourself. You can actually be in your own company and not just the company of everybody else.
Okay, but I always get annoyed when people conclude that like the answer is to embrace the discomfort and just embrace it, and that's as simple as it can be. I'm not going to do that because in this case, I think there are actual tips that I think are helping me as I practice them, and that could help you too. And it is not become more enlightened and embrace Taoism. That might work for you, but for the rest of us, we are putting together a guide of tips on how to manage boredom, and I will get to that in a sec. But first, I want to show you the last really important part of this, the answer to why we've got this graph. Boredom is on the rise, not just here, but kind of in lots of different countries. It's sort of a paradox because we're at a time of life where there's more exciting content and experiences and freedom and opportunity than ever before. Why is this happening? Well, we've already answered part one of that, which is we have less inherent meaning in our lives because we've moved away from some of these collective sources of meaning like religion, community, ritual, etc. But the other part is something you're also probably very familiar with. Let me show you. Okay, let's get back to the bored, dark car, clear out all this wholesome meaning stuff. Let's get back to one more scenario of what we can do when I'm sitting here questioning my existence. I got this other option, and damn, it's a good option. Oh, and before you think I'm going to get all judgy and start condemning you for using your phone or watching Netflix, I'm not. That would be dumb. I'm not going to do that. This is our lives. I'm literally a person who makes content for the internet. I'm addicted to social media and TV just like you are. That's fine. I'm not a zealot and I'm not going to judge anyone. But now that I've read all the literature, I do want to let you in on what happens when the phone and the scrolling turns into our medicine for boredom. Okay, the car's back on, we're moving. Let's look at the meaning tank here. Okay, so it's Saturday 3 p.m, I'm bored, but look, my car's back on. Scrolling some YouTube shorts here, and we're moving. My meaning tank isn't full, but there's enough for the car to go. But wait, something's off here. Oh, look, my attention headlights aren't even working. They're not pointed at the road. I can't really tell where I'm going. Ah, I see why. All my attention power is being used to power my phone. This is what I am paying attention to. So my car is driving, I'm moving, but I'm sort of just driving in a straight line. There's kind of a sense of meaning and entertainment, but I get the sense that I'm not totally choosing this as I scroll. Oh yes, look over here. I've pressed cruise control, autopilot. I'm not hurting anyone. I'm not an internet troll. I'm not in that demonic mode. I'm not on some sketchy street somewhere. But I'm also not using boredom to do the hard work of reassessing my route. I'm just going straight. I'm on cruise control, which again is fine. Like after a week of work, I'm not interested in like reassessing my life. I want to decompress. I want to hit cruise control and I want to sit back and I want to passively be given a sense of meaning about the story that I'm watching on Netflix or the Instagram, whatever. That is a way that we decompress. Stories. People have been doing it forever. I know I've said this, but the last thing we need is more judgy energy around this stuff. But what happens if phones and scrolling become the medicine I use every time I'm bored? Well, there are good studies around this now. First, what they're finding, unsurprisingly, is that people are more and more using their phones to cure the feeling of boredom. I mean, yeah, that makes total sense. You're bored waiting for a train or whatever, you pull out your phone. What this means is that you never get out to push your car. You never sit in the default mode network and push your car and assess your life and do the uncomfortable thing of thinking big about the future and the past. This cruise control is kind of like a nice morphine drip into our purpose tank. We don't ever need to get out and push the car and do the big mind wandering thing that leads us sometimes to more creative or meaningful actions. And according to this one study, what they're finding is that evidence shows that digital media, rather than reducing our boredom or like satiating it, it actually increases it. So to push our analogy to its absolute limits, not only does the phone never give us a chance to break down and reassess our route, but it actually makes us more likely to break down. It's as if the fuel that we get from this is like this radioactive goo that creates a leak in our fuel tank. So it runs out quicker and we break down more often. We get bored more often, which in turn leads us to grab our phone to satiate or get rid of our boredom. Psychologists call this a vicious cycle between boredom and phones. Now look, I knew phones were addictive. I've read all this stuff, the dopamine, we all know this is happening, but I didn't know this when I got into this story. I didn't realize this natural psychological cue called boredom that has a lot to do with my mind's ability to make meaning and purpose is being totally messed with because of my propensity to grab the phone to like cure it, which makes me more likely to get bored, which makes me more likely to grab my phone. Like I didn't realize that that existed, and it's actually blowing my mind. Okay, so to recap, you get bored, you have three options. Go down the demonic route, start to hurt people and be mean. Go down the constructive route, do the hard work of sitting with it, let your mind drift into broad, creative, nostalgic thinking, even though it's uncomfortable. Or take the middle road, turn on cruise control, and take neither route. Kind of numb the whole system. The last question I want to try to answer, or start to answer, is, okay, so what do we do? This exists. Phones aren't going away. I'm not getting rid of my phone anytime soon. How do I manage boredom in a modern world? That's the last section of this video. So if you clicked on this video because you wanted to learn about the history and neuroscience of boredom, and you yourself have no interest in figuring out how to manage your own boredom, then now is the time for you to click away and go find something else to do. The rest of us, I want to take the rest of this video to go through some really specific tips that I've been practicing and exploring and that the research points to as ways that we can manage our boredom. It'll all be documented in the link in the description, so you don't even have to watch this. You can just click that and read through it briefly. But for those who want, let me talk you through it. Number one, look at it. I'm not going to go all new age on you, but I am going to say that the most effective, most powerful, subtle thing that you can do is recognize what it feels like to be bored the next time you're bored. Try to notice your mind going into a more existential mode where you're thinking about the past and the future. At first, it's just gonna feel like a jumble and a cloud of uncomfortable feeling. But with time, even if you just take a minute before you intervene and do anything, just to notice, you will refine that sense of being able to see the boredom. Oh, and you kind of have to do this without judging it, like without like getting down on yourself. Just like let it happen, look at it. There's actually a ton of science around this very simple technique that is called mindfulness. It applies to all kinds of mental experiences, but it really applies to this boredom situation. There's a million ways to formally practice this, like a million apps, Headspace, the Waking Up app with Sam Harris, a million YouTube videos, whatever. But you can also just informally try it out next time you're having an uncomfortable feeling. Try to look at it instead of avoid it. Number two, and this is also going to sound kind of new agey, but I promise it's also very useful, is work on accepting it. Meaning going through the process of, instead of trying to avoid it, embracing it and saying, this is what is happening right now. And even saying, this is what helps for me, is like, this is actually a good thing. This is my body telling me something about my life. I'm going to actually try to accept it instead of trying to resist it.
The $64,000 question about boredom that everybody wants to know is, what do I do about it? How do I eliminate it? And There are lots of different responses to that. I think the first one is to say you can't eliminate it. Boredom, if it's something that plays a role in your life, if it's functional, then you don't want to get rid of it, right? Because you want that function.
Another way to put this is relax into it. Relaxation is kind of the opposite of boredom in some ways. Relaxation is an acceptance of non-action. What I do is I kind of go back to these brain scans and I think of like the nostalgic, like thinking about the past and the future, and try to say like, oh, my brain is going through this like default mode network thing, and that's kind of cool. I'm gonna just relax into it instead of like judge myself that I'm like feeling it. Okay, so those are the first kind of micro actions that you can take inside of your mind next time you feel bored. And those sort of set the stage for managing your boredom. If you do those two, then you will be in a better place to engage with the rest of the things on this list, which are things that are scientifically proven to help you fill this tank of meaning, which is core to us feeling regulated and good. So that leads us to engage in what the scientists call pro-social behavior, which means just hanging out with people. So much of human meaning comes from relationships, connection with others. Helping other people happens to be like a very potent fuel for this sense of meaning and purpose. And for the introverts out there, it doesn't have to be like a heart-to-heart, hour-long conversation with somebody. It can be like going to an event where there's a bunch of other people. Group rituals, festivals, sporting events, concerts, political rallies. These are a fast track to feeling some kind of collective meaning with your fellow human beings. I think other animals like dogs and cats and pets also can fulfill a version of this as well. We're gonna put some links in this boredom guide of a platform where you can find different communities and meetups, as well as this cool blog post of 99 ways to find IRL community. Okay, the next one. Get creative. Humans are artistic, creative beings, and turns out that being creative, making stuff, fills our tank. And as the science says, when we are bored, we are actually uniquely placed to be more creative, to think differently than we normally do. The literature talks a lot about like mastery and practice, like practicing piano every day. That's a little high effort for this. I'm more so thinking low effort, low cost, like high reward creativity. Cook something, do some like basic crocheting or knitting, origami, adult coloring books, mood boards, collages, finger painting. Like, it doesn't have to be good. No one has to see it, but the act of making something is a source of meaning and a great way to like leverage your boredom for something creative. The next one is near and dear to my heart, which is get curious. Curiosity and enthusiasm about something is a deep source of meaning for a lot of people. This is actually like the core. For me, besides my family, this is like where I get most of my meaning in life. Nerding out about stuff. There's this quote from Andy Warhol. You need to let the little things that would ordinarily bore you suddenly thrill you. I mean, easier said than done, Andy, but like try to find things that light you up, whether it's like obsessing over the specs of trains in Europe or looking into how ants build ant colonies, whatever. Finding something that you can nerd out about and obsess over can be really good for meaning and a cure for boredom. Going down the old Wikipedia rabbit hole works every time. If you cultivate this enough, you get access to like the inverse of boredom, which is called flow, where you are so deeply engrossed in what you are learning or doing that you kind of forget everything. It's like your attention and meaning are just on like turbo drive and you can kind of just go for hours. Okay, next one is going outside. This is, again, well documented in the literature. Wandering through a forest does wonders to our sense of awe and perspective and meaning. You're also moving your body and going through a walk in nature. And often you can find activities that blend a bunch of these. Like if you go out bird watching or something with somebody else, you are doing the social thing, you are doing the nerd out about something thing, and you're doing like the go on a walk in nature thing. Go to a painting class. You're doing mastery and practice, but you're also doing creativity. You're also doing social. So anyway, all this is in the guide in the description. And I also want to kind of hear from all of you, like, what does boredom feel like for you? And what do you do when you are bored? I would love the comment section to turn into a discourse around the experience of boredom for different people. So please do that. So I just want to finish by re-emphasizing what we started with, which is that boredom is not bad. It is a very natural cue that our body has given us to spur us to action, to let us think about what is meaningful in our lives, and to help us assess our story through life. And in this world where meaning is not made for us like the old days, and we have these phones that kind of sabotage our ability to sit with ourselves, learning to sit with and accept boredom is a skill. It is one that you must practice if you want to leverage its benefits. So, I know that this story has been quite impactful for me in how I approach my bored moments, and I hope it can do some version of the same for you, and I really look forward to hearing from all of you down in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Saw this new video by
because if you've ever Men. What do they want? Money? Status? Fast, expensive cars? What is the ultimate male fantasy? Is it fame? Fortune? 3 hot chicks at once? Haha, hell yeah, brother. No, according to men on the internet, it's something a little more simple. This is literally just a fetish. I fucking hate men so much. Men are why we can't have nice things. As I was working on an upcoming video, I made the terrible mistake of logging onto Twitter, where I saw this post. A montage from the anime Josie, the Tiger, and the Fish, a movie about a college student who is assigned to take care of a paraplegic girl, and spoiler, eventually they fall in love. Many men were yearn posting in the replies of this tweet and talking about how they wish to fall in love and would love a relationship like this, while many others, mostly women, were absolutely fucking disgusted at this. Why would a bunch of men be fantasizing about being with a woman in a wheelchair? Seems pretty creepy and predatory, right? Also just unrealistic and problematic. Well, in this video, we are going to be talking about why so many men resonated to that clip and this movie, and why so many people are so confused as to why. We are also going to be reading some absolutely unhinged tweets, as usual, to get to the bottom of why such a wholesome post turned into, once again, another battlefront for the ongoing, never-ending gender war. Men versus women, women versus men, the male loneliness epidemic, the female loneliness epidemic, the dealing with dating apps. Do men prefer thin women or curvy women? Brunettes or blondes? Do women like dad bods or fit men? Do they like beards or clean-shaven? Oh yeah, that reminds me. Let's quickly get into today's sponsor, Henson Shaving. You ever just accept that some products are just garbage? Like, for years I thought ripping your tights on the first wear was just a part of being a human woman. We just accepted that. That's just how it is, sweetie. But that shouldn't be how it is. It's a bad design. And that's why I like Henson Shaving. Because if you've ever used a multi-blade razor, you're probably sick of the irritation, the razor burn, the overpriced blades, and you probably think, that's just the way it is. But it doesn't have to be how it is. Thanks to Henson Shaving. Henson Shaving is on a mission to improve shaving, with no gimmicky subscriptions or moisturizing strips, but with real innovation and a focus on your skin's health. What really sets Henson apart is their engineering, with their Henson AL13 safety razor being manufactured in an aerospace machine shop that built parts for the International Space Station. This precision allows the blade to extend just 1/1000th of an inch beyond the shave plane, less than the thickness of a human hair. The razor prevents any bouncing or skipping, resulting in an irritation-free shave every time. And here's the best part. Once you invest in a Henson razor, it's a lifetime purchase. The only thing you'll need to replace are the blades, which literally cost only 10 cents each. So once you own the razor, you'll be spending like $3 to $5 on blades, compared to the ongoing cost of buying expensive plastic cartridges. Henson's store offers a variety of colors and even a titanium version, so you can pick the razor that best fits your style. So if you're tired of razor burn and overpaying for blades, now is the perfect time to make the switch. Just head over to hensonshaving.com/shoe and add both a Henson razor and the 100 blades to your car, and then enter code SHOE at checkout to get the 100 blades for free with your purchase. Your skin, your wallet, and your environment will thank you. Big thanks to Henson Razor for sponsoring this video, and thank you, the viewer, for not skipping the ad. You didn't skip the ad, right? Now let's get back to the video. Now, I am not an anime connoisseur. In fact, I basically know nothing about anime. I am probably the most tourist of all the tourists. Yeah, hi. I have a question. Was the upskirt shot necessary in order to advance the plot? I watched Pokemon and Sailor Moon when I was a kid, and a few years ago I watched Beastars on Netflix. Legoshi, best boy. Not a furry, by the way. And honestly, that's about it for my anime consumption. Unless you're counting VTubers. If you're counting VTubers, I watch a lot of anime. But because of this clip going viral, I watched Josie the Tiger and the Fish, and well, I thought it was a good movie. I recommend watching it. I thought it was a really cute, good story. I only cried a little bit, and I completely understood what the tweet meant by calling it the average male fantasy. So, what was wrong with it? Why did this clip go so viral in such a negative way? Why were thousands of people angry at this post? Well, let us dilly-dally no longer and read some of these angry replies to get a better understanding of what the issue is, shall we? Wholesome male fantasy, and it's fetishizing a disabled girl for him to control. Oh no. They think, oh god, why? Always vulnerable, always happy, always needs you. Pretty perverted. Where are these fan fictions coming from? There were like hundreds of tweets just like this. Why did they see a cute montage of a happy couple, a man and a woman happy, together? I know, unheard of. Why did they see that and then immediately come to these conclusions? Like, as someone who actually watched the movie, Josie is not always happy, and she's absolutely not portrayed as some, like, vulnerable, ooh-woo, sex doll waifu. She's boisterous, she kind of has a foul mouth, she's very sassy and headstrong, she like straight up calls him her servant, but she was also very depressed. She basically never left her house, she was basically a girl failure. As a former girl failure, I love to see representation in media. But they actually show her disability, like, not in a good way. Like, they don't romanticize it, they don't sugarcoat it. And I noticed, unlike a lot of movies, unlike a lot of romance movies, at least like the Hallmark kind, where it's like the stuffy male lead learning to live life from the quirky, cute female lead, he's already got his shit together. And she learns to live life from him. He encourages her to live her dreams, and in return, he learns to live life in a completely different way. And I thought that was really cool and sweet. Also, the animation was really good. Is anime good? Have I been sleeping on anime this entire time? His fantasy is that she becomes permanently disabled and helplessly dependent on him, but can still make him a sandwich. Sounds about right. Oh my god, after watching the movie, these tweets are even more insane. But even putting the movie aside, just seeing that like cute montage out of context, where the fuck are they getting this? These are very clearly just two happy people. But because the caption was the average male fantasy, their mind immediately goes to the darkest, worst faith interpretation of this. The problem is these people can't see any humanity in men. They can't see any humanity in humanity in general. Average male fantasy equals girlfriend with no agency who's completely physically dependent on you and forced into blanket subservience and compliance. Sounds about right. You males are weird for fetishizing physically disabled women. Average male fantasy is having a physically disabled girl that they can abuse however they want. Got it. Not to be that guy. I'm gonna be that guy. The infantilization of the physically disabled here is a little, dare I say, ableist? The implication here that people in wheelchairs cannot find love, and if they do, the person who loves them literally just loves them because they can't run away. Weird. Average men can't even be nice to their healthy and normal girlfriend. What makes you think they'll be able to handle a disabled person as their lover? Whoa, normal? What do you mean by normal? These people are just so ableist, chat. Can you believe it? Chat? Chat? I don't even live stream. Who's chat? I'm disabled, blind, so I showed this to my boyfriend. He says, I love you because you're you, and you make my days happier. So what if I have to drive you places or help you with cooking and cleaning? I would have done that anyway. Disability has nothing to do with it. I love you. Ma'am, I don't know how to tell you this, but, your boyfriend is a rapist. Sorry you had to find out this way. You show this as fantasy because it's not true for the majority of men who participate in abuse of disabled people. No, the fantasy is the woman appreciates his efforts to make her happy. Stop lying and abusing women and the disabled. Your meds, schizo. You don't even know that f***ing guy. What do you mean stop abusing women and the disabled? Bitch, who are you? Also, the majority of men participate in abuse of disabled people. Are you okay? The majority of men are not abusers. That is a very, very small minority of men. The majority of men are men that just wake up, take a shit, get out of bed, take a shower, go to work, come home, and wait for GTA 6 to come out. That is the majority of men. Men commit 95% of all rape, but okay. Barging into the romance section of Barnes & Noble like, attention everyone! Rape! Where is that coming from? So close, this is fetish content. Ah yes, the dirtiest, most taboo of all fetishes. A happy relationship. Honestly, in 2025, that might be true. Oh, you want a wife and kids? You sick fuck. But this is literally just a perverted fantasy, LMAO. You think it's a perverted fantasy because, how do I put this nicely? You are a pervert. Literally seeing a cute montage of a male and female character having fun together, being in love together, and being like, rape! He's a rapist! This is a fetish! Are these people okay? Stop watching porn. Wait, this is a woman. Okay, stop reading Taken by the Werewolf Billionaire. Or whatever the fuck you read. I swear to God, some of the shit women read would make the most depraved internet gooner blush. Or so I've been told. This is literally just a fetish. Okay, listen, I'm not gonna pretend there's nobody out there who's like, she can't run away, she has no legs. I'm not gonna sit here and pretend there's nobody out there who has a crippled, disabled fetish, okay? I've been on the internet for 20 years. I've been on DeviantArt. I've seen shit you wouldn't believe. But the majority of people, probably most, if not all the people responding to this, do not have a cripple fetish, okay? In fact, her being in a wheelchair basically has nothing to do with it. Much like how females coom over, like, vampires or, like I said before, the billionaire werewolf fantasy. This is just the average male fantasy distilled down to its most extreme. So what is the average male fantasy? The average male fantasy is the fantasy of both men and women alike. It is simply to love and to be loved. But more specifically, the male fantasy is to be a protector and a provider for those that they love. Put a pin in this because we are going to come back to this in a big way, trust me. The average male fantasy is being a globally known terrorist. The average male fantasy is that a woman who isn't fat. The average male fantasy is actually job security. You know what? These guys may have a point here. Pedophile alert. Men want disabled child wives. Average male fantasy is a disabled child. More proof that men are pedos. That's a little girl. This is weird. So, first of all, she's literally older than the guy. The guy is 22 and she is 24. In anime years, he is practically hag-maxing. And yes, she may be physically disabled, but aren't all men mentally disabled in their own special way? At least the ones in my audience. They will freely admit this. Maybe she, the older woman, is taking advantage of this sensitive young man. Have you ever thought of that? She looks like an 11-year-old child. Where are her breasts? First of all, really weird way to say that. She looks like a child. Show me her titties. Also, I love how, like, when anime women have huge boobs, it's disgusting, Coomer porn brain or whatever. But if the anime woman has small boobs, she is a child and you're a chimo. Can't fucking win. Also, if she had big boobs, they'd absolutely be like, wow, look at this sexualization of the disabled. Also, you know, like, adult women can be flat-chested, right? Like, that actually exists in real life. Like, adult human women can have small boobs. We love all titties here on the Shoe on Head channel. All titties is good titties. End of story. Women fantasy. A boyfriend with depth and the loving, soft, deeply caring side of them. Men's fantasy. 12-year-old anime girl who looks and speaks like a toddler. Also notice how she's literally the shape and size of a child. Yuck. Have you people ever seen a child? No, you're all childless. Silly me. She's not even that short. She's just sitting. See, like when they're laying side by side, she's like a full-grown adult woman. Why do these people look at this and immediately think of child rape? Go to therapy. And listen, I know with anime it can get a little weird, right? Like, excuse me, Poo Poo Pee Pee Chan is 2,000 years old and this is Poo Poo Pee Pee Chan. But this does not even look like a child. This looks like a cute woman. This is like a random rant, but I feel like there are no more cute women nowadays. You know what I mean? You have all like the insta baddies, the e-thots, the e-girls, the muscle mommies, the boss babes, the boy babes. But I feel like every woman is just hot now. Which, by the way, I don't think is healthy for the male psyche whatsoever. You shouldn't wake up and be able to scroll through pictures of like the hottest woman you've ever seen in your life like 20 times before you've had like your morning cup of coffee. You shouldn't log in and immediately be one-shotted by 10 tens all day, as if that wouldn't make you go insane, as if that wouldn't make you crash out. Like back in the day, you'd probably see like one fine dame on your bus ride to work, and you'd think about her for 40 years until the day you die. That's how it used to be. That's how it should be. Now every woman is like a crazy, hot, unobtainable Instagram goddess with the fattest of ass. Zoomers don't know how good we had it. You'd go to Blockbuster and the 21-year-old cashier behind the counter would be the most adorable woman you've ever seen. No Botox, no lip filler, just a pure soul, full of joy and whimsy. And now women are full of hate and SSRIs. But they're hot. They're hotter than they've ever been. They're hotter and more depressed than they've ever been in history. Sad. What were we talking about? Oh yeah, anime. I didn't take my Vyvanse today, could you tell? Men's fantasy. A big titty woman with the face of a 16-year-old that is useful for cooking, cleaning, and sex. Women's fantasy. Gets treated like a queen and a man who keeps tracks of our periods so he can take care of us. I think I speak for a lot of women here when I say our fantasies do not, in fact, include men tracking our periods. Personally, if my husband was like, honey, just a reminder, you're in your luteal phase, I'm taking the kids. Men like to pretend they want this, and then they beat their wife when dinner isn't ready or their son when he's misbehaving. First of all, I'm sorry that happened to you. But there are in fact good men out there. I've seen them. Some may be in this very audience. Sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face. This is the shoe on head audience. You're all gremlins. Male fantasy equals a woman that can't run away from him. A woman that's dependent on him. Interesting. When men are involved, it's basic survival instinct to assume the worst. Men are guilty until they prove themselves innocent. You know what? I take my opinions back on free speech. I changed my mind. No more free speech. No more free speech until you bitches learn to behave. A woman's fantasy is a man who won't rape her, and a man's fantasy is raping a woman. I'm sorry, where is the rape, ma'am? Maybe that's how you see it, because you're brainwashed to hate men. So true. I hate how— But in reality, women are the real demons here. Oh, god damn it. We just want a happy relationship. Is it so much to ask for? Yes. Yes, it is. Oh look, more misogynistic gooner fantasy slop written by misogynistic gooner men. This is why 70% of anime is garbage. So, here's the thing, that, misogynistic gooner fantasy slop written by misogynistic gooner men was actually written by Saiko Tanabe, a woman. A woman wrote this story. And I feel like a very important detail everyone is sleeping on when they covered this was the fact that this is very much the female fantasy as well. A man loving you for who you are despite your flaws, literally sweeping you off your feet and carrying you around on adventures, helping you live out your dreams, face your fears, and supporting you through the good and bad times. You're going to sit here and tell me that's not the female fantasy too? Is this not the basic female fantasy? Is this not the knight in shining armor coming to rescue you and falling in love with you? Why on earth are so many women so mad at this? Are men now the hopeless romantics? Are men now the ones yearning for a fairy tale romance? Is this why all the Disney remakes are like, she's not gonna be saved by the prince, she's a strong, independent woman? Meanwhile, men still want to be the prince, men still want to be the knight in shining armor. Men are like, I will save you from your monotonous 9-to-5 job. I will give you a house and babies. And women are like, no, I must be an actuarial consultant. Be gone, vile misogynist. Is that what is occurring here? Also, that aside, there literally is a gender-swapped version of this story called Perfect World. It is a manga. Mango? I don't know. Do not come for me, weebs. Men will statistically leave their wives and partners the moment they find out they're disabled or have a life-threatening condition. You're right, it is a fantasy. Actually, that study was debunked by the authors themselves, who admitted they did the math wrong. It's actually not much higher, but then again, even if it was, and it happens, I've seen it happen to people, it's terrible. Marriage should be through sickness and through health, but that's not really the point here. And the fact that so many people are focusing on the wheelchair part of this just proves that they just don't get it. The ones of pure mind and pure soul get it, but these fucking semen demons out here, they don't get it. But not all semen demons. The amount of people in comments who just don't get that men want a cute, loving girlfriend is beyond me. They call them creeps for wanting actual love and not a girl boss who only wants your money. Ah, thank you, a sane person. Hopefully the replies aren't full of people calling her a pick-me. Pick-me alert, least obvious pick-me. Me, pick me please. Hope he picks you, sis. Pick me, pick me, pick me. An incel could have written this. Fuck. Why are so many VTubers either pick-me's or racist? You mean why do so many female VTubers disagree with you? Why so many aren't towing the mainstream liberal feminist NPC line? Because they can. See, the most powerful weapon women have against other women is social ostracization. You don't want to be seen as a pick-me or a racist, so you keep your mouth shut in order to survive in female social circles. But in the cases of VTubers, virtual YouTubers, they're basically anonymous. They can say anything they want. They're basically wearing a mask. They're free from the chains of the eternal HR longhouse. But apparently, even being anonymous online does not save them, because they still get doxxed for simply not hating men. Lovely. Maybe I should save this rant for a different video someday. Moving on. Men are why we can't have nice things, by the way. First of all, men make all the things. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Also, I just realized it was a man saying that. It was a whole-ass man saying men are why we can't have nice things. I don't deserve this trophy. This is for you, sir. This is for you. I'm not worthy. Listen, I make women jokes. I'm very critical of feminism and propaganda aimed at women. But you will never catch me in a million years saying some shit like women are why we can't have nice things. I have a mom. I have female family members. I have female friends. Maybe one day I'll have a daughter. Women make the world a beautiful place and, like men, can be flawed and deserve criticism like anyone else. But there's something genuinely so cucked about people who put down their own gender or race. Oh god, race. Self-hating white people. Don't get me started on self-hating white people. White people are so evil. I hate being white. White people can't dance. White people food is so gross. You're not getting into Wakanda, bro. You're not getting invited to the cookout. Enough. But yeah, women were not the only ones who had a problem with this. There were a lot of men who didn't quite relate to this being the average male fantasy. It's fine to love the disabled. I didn't need to remind you that. But to glorify it? This anime is certainly Marxist propaganda. The movie is about him taking a job as her caretaker, and when he learns of her dreams, he makes it his mission to help her dreams come true. So it is Marxist propaganda to help a disabled person pursue their dreams? Yeah, it's woven in. Empathy is the target of propaganda. Marxism is when girl in wheelchair. I love this. Empathy is the target of propaganda. Every piece of media that makes you feel empathy is communism. Political brain rot. If you're at the point where you see this and you're thinking of communism, you need to log off. You are unwell. I'm sorry, but when I reproduce, I don't want a high probability of my offspring being mentally or physically retarded. We need a better class of incels whose bar is higher than the retarded. She's not retarded, she has a spinal injury that's not genetic. Also, what is this LARP? I love how everyone is just kind of having like a normal conversation about this clip, and this guy just comes out of nowhere like, I would never put my pure white seed in such a vile creature. Like, you absolutely know this guy has a non-white girlfriend. They all do, all these like, I hate white people women always have white boyfriends. All these, I hate non-white people boys always have non-white girlfriends. I don't know what it is, but I've seen it too many times. I guarantee you when this man logs off of his Black Sun Roman statue Twitter account, he's clapping Latina booty cheeks. My fantasy is not being a simp, but okay. Fellas, is it simping to love a woman? Nah, this is not the male fantasy. That man is a beta male. If she wasn't in a wheelchair, she would leave him for Chad. Fellas, is it beta to love a woman? This is not my fantasy. This is some gay shit, to be honest. Fellas, is it gay to love a woman? What no pussy does to a motherfucker. Brother, I've seen what pussy does to a motherfucker, and it's far worse. The average male fantasy is taking care of their crippled wife. I don't think I've ever had that fantasy before. I thought it was gonna be about going on some quest to kill the dragon to win the princess or something. It is. That is the average male fantasy. But there are no dragons to slay. There are no princesses to save. But there is that little old lady in the grocery store who can't quite reach that top shelf. There's that heavy box the pretty girl you work with can't quite lift herself. There's that jar of tomato sauce your wife can't quite open. There's that Lego set your little son can't quite put together himself. Or there is this paraplegic girl who wants to see the ocean. This is the Princess and the Dragon story. And despite what many are told, men do have a lot of love to give. And they want some kind of excuse or mechanism to show that love. In a world where men expressing themselves is either seen as toxic or gay. And one way of expressing that love is solving problems. Men fucking love solving problems. I don't know what it is. They also love reading Wikipedia articles. The amount of times I walked over and my husband is reading a random fucking Wikipedia article about like the world's tallest buildings or like a random battle in World War II. I didn't know if this was autism or what, but apparently it's a man thing. Anyway, yes, men love solving problems. And in a world that makes them feel useless, makes them feel like they have no purpose, men desperately feel like they need to prove their worth. They are desperately looking for a purpose in life. So it is not at all shocking to me that the modern young man is seeing a clip like this and longing for this. A lot of modern men don't have a chance to prove themselves, to make something of their lives. They don't have a chance to provide anything for anyone because they don't have anything to provide and they don't have anyone. They are doing everything their grandfathers did, but seeing none of the results. They're lost. What can they provide? And as I said earlier, her being in a wheelchair is the protector and provider instinct taken to a extreme. And yes, it is a fantasy, considering if you ask anyone who's actually in a wheelchair, they know it's not all butterflies and rainbows, and they know that it's hard on relationships. It can be difficult on their partner. But just like in the movie, it's not shown as butterflies and rainbows. Josie feels like a burden. But towards the end of the movie, the guy takes on that burden. Not because he gets something in return, but because it's his duty. Because it makes her happy, which makes him happy in return. Loyalty, duty, virtue, acts of service, big or small. Men live for that shit. And yes, these are stereotypes. Not everyone fits into these boxes, blah, 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 blah. But for the most part, it's true. When many men look at this relationship, that is what they see. And a lot of modern women are looking at this relationship and being disgusted because, in a way, it's the complete inverse of the strong, independent woman they've been sold. They've been told they need to be. The modern woman crafted by modern Disney for modern audiences. Unlike the Hollywood-crafted modern woman, this woman does need her man. She is not strong and she's not independent, at least physically. This doesn't mean she's like an empty vessel with no thoughts or freedom. No, in fact, in the movie, Josie does roll away from him a few times. It is a fantasy not because of a power imbalance, but because the man has a tangible purpose, and the woman is willingly and lovingly letting him fulfill that purpose.
Because I can depend on you. I know that if I ever feel frightened, I can just reach out to you.
Men simply want something good to die for, to make it beautiful to live. This manifests in a lot of ways, but the most common is having a loving partner and or a family. Something unobtainable to many people nowadays. So yes, literally one of the most normal things ever is becoming a fantasy. Sad. Also, men will deny this, but they absolutely have a biological clock. It may not hit in your teens or your 20s, but one day you're going to have a dream. You have a little daughter making you pancakes with your wife in the morning, and you're not going to be able to get it out of your head. And that is the male biological clock. Everything you do, the money you make working that grating 9-to-5 job, it will all be for something bigger and more important than yourself one day. You will come home to a warm and happy home, greeted by people who care about you, and love you, and rely on you, and everything will make sense then. Until then, you'll just be on the internet, being called a misogynist, for wanting something bigger and more important than yourself, for wanting something beautiful and normal. And that is the average male fantasy. That, and 3 hot chicks at once. Hell yeah, brother. Haha, you know what I'm saying? So that was that little video. Men in the comments, let me know. Am I correct? Is that the average male fantasy? Or is it not that deep? Men and women in the comments, what is your fantasy? And no, I don't mean that. I don't want to hear about how you want to be crushed by a 12-foot futa. That is between you and God, not you and Shoe-on-Head. I mean, what is your ultimate dream? Do you want to travel the world? Do you want a nice big family one day? Do you want to own a farm? Do you want to live in a shed in the woods and make pipe bombs? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you soon with a new video.
Have you seen the medical report that confirms Aman Khalif is a biological male? Yeah, people are being pretty stupid about that. I remember that, yeah, back in the day. I remember that very well. That was about the XY chromosome. Yeah, I mean, this is my opinion, right? I said this back then. I don't think that this person should have competed in the women's sports league, right? Because like the women's sports league, it's made to make it an even playing field for women. So if there's an edge case that makes it to where it's not an even playing field for women, then it defeats the purpose of a women's league if you're allowing people to come in that don't effectively fall under the category that they get removed from by leveling the playing field, right? It's a self-defeating purpose. Like, why do you even have male and female ladders for things, right? It's literally a South Park episode. Yeah, of course, right? It's not a bad thing, right? That's not like a, oh my God, like this is like women are bad. People are built biologically differently. And if you have somebody who has the biological advantages of a male, putting them in the women's league contradicts the purpose of the women's league. This is the same thing as like somebody saying that like, you know, they have a disability, they join like the Para-Olympics, but like their disability is that like they're autistic or something like that. But like if you're competing against everybody else in a wheelchair and you're running, well, it doesn't really matter if you're autistic because it still defeats the purpose of what the competition was made for, right? And so it's so weird. I don't know why people defend it, and I don't know why such a simple chain of logic is somehow just not understood at all. But yeah, it's been kind of fucking funny.
A lot of people asked about this one. Why do we call chunks of games levels? And what about all the other fun words we've used at various times, like stage, world, zone, and so on? I was planning to do a video that quickly ran through a whole bunch of requests that I didn't think needed a big explanation, but the development of the word level ended up being more complicated than I expected. As a gaming term, we define level as each of a series of stages of increasing difficulty through which a player may progress, completing one stage in order to reach the next. In more general terms, level can mean a lot of things. It can be floors in a building, the amount or number of something, a measure of rank or ability, and like 10 other things that aren't really relevant to us right now. So how did it get into games? Looking at a lot of early games, many of them didn't really have levels as we think of them today. If you watched my video on the origin of the term boss, you'll recall how many classic arcade games just went on forever. There wasn't really any forward progress, and the player just survived as long as possible, trying to get a high score. In the absence of levels, games tended to describe separate chunks of gameplay as rounds, waves, or occasionally stages. As games got a little more complex, they started to have the action divided between different locations. Something that today we would probably think of as different levels. But the idea didn't catch on right away. Scrolling levels were still a ways off, so these games would often have a level taking up exactly one screen. These single screen levels were often called boards, or screens. It was common for these games to boast about the number of screens they had in their advertisements. Limited memory meant there often weren't very many screens, usually only 3 or 4, so they were set to loop endlessly until the player was defeated. Beat all 4 screens, and you just started on the first one again. Sometimes there was some sort of progression in difficulty, sometimes it was exactly the same, so the focus was still less on getting through all the levels, and still more about just getting a high score. Home consoles of the 70s were much the same. For example, most Atari games also tended to refer to the levels as screens or rounds, depending on the game.
Atari introduces the Woman of the Year, Ms. Pac-Man. Just like the arcade classic, 4 different game screens, floating fruit, even pretzels.
Honey, don't you know I'm more than Pac-Man with a bow?
Reach for Ms. Pac-Man.
Reach for Atari.
But we do start seeing references to levels popping up a little bit more.
Got him. Vicious beggars. Oh, you've reached level 4. Oh, you've got it. It's a game even a mummy can love. Student Guard from Parker Brothers.
As we went into the 80s and technology improved, we started to see a few changes. Games began adding some sort of counter to help players keep track of their progress. For example, Pac-Man levels all take place on the same maze, but each level would change out the bonus item Pac-Man could collect and keep track of it in the corner. Space Invader Part 2 put little counters on the player's shields. Donkey Kong had 2 counters. The game had 4 screens, and each screen would raise a height counter by 25 meters. When the player cleared all 4 of the screens, the level counter would go up by 1, and the screens would repeat. When we hit the 8-bit era, it became standard for games to have actual levels as we usually think of them today. Most Nintendo and Sega games had a set number of levels for the player to get through, with an ending once they were all completed. At this point, the word level is pretty common, but we still see some variants. Words like stage, world, and zone are still seeing a fair amount of use. Around this time, we also start to see the world-level format that would become very common. Most people point to Super Mario Bros. As the first one to do this. I didn't find an earlier example of this, but I wouldn't be surprised if there was one out there. Games like Sonic and Mario 3 began to group up levels with a similar theme or appearance into stages or worlds. Now we'd have a number of icy levels in an ice world, or factory levels in a factory world. So why out of all these words did level become the standard? Well, to answer that, we're going to jump back to the beginning, because while arcades were doing their thing, in another corner of the gaming world, the word level caught on much quicker. Let's bounce back to 1974 with the printing of the very first Dungeons & Dragons book. Yes, once again, we're about to see how Dungeons & Dragons had a big impact on how we think about games decades later. Early on, while describing how to prepare for a game, the book describes all the things a Dungeon Master, here referred to as a referee, should have on hand. First, the referee must draw out a minimum of half a dozen maps of the levels of his underworld, people them with monsters of various horrid aspect, distribute treasures accordingly, and note the location of the latter two on keys, each corresponding to the appropriate level. So right away, D&D was referring to the maps an adventuring party would navigate as levels. D&D is using level to refer to a few different things here. The floors of a dungeon the players are exploring, the power of the player's character, and the difficulty of the monsters. As we can see in some of these other pages, a DM was supposed to be able to quickly set up an appropriate monster encounter by simply matching up the level of the monster with the level of the dungeon. Level 1 monsters would be on the first level of the dungeon, level 5 monsters would be on the 5th. These would also determine the amount of experience and treasure the player should expect as their reward. You might recall from some other videos that a lot of very early computer games were heavily influenced by Dungeons & Dragons. There is a tendency to borrow a lot of the themes and general rules to make dungeon crawling style games. But these games also borrowed a lot of terminology of Dungeons & Dragons. Things like hit points, spell slots, and yes, levels were very common.
What are you doing? Levels. Levels. I'm gonna build these different levels.
Remember the game of Dungeons, aka D&D? This was the game that had the very first boss battle. In 1975, it was one of the first video RPGs. It used level to signify both the strength of the player character and which floor of the dungeon you were on. This trend would continue for many other video RPGs throughout the 70s and into the 80s with games like Rogue. I think what we're really seeing here is two different sets of technologies leading to different types of games. Arcade games had to be fast and flashy. They usually ran off of custom boards that allowed better graphics. They were designed to attract players, run them through their games quickly to get them spending more quarters, and there just wasn't time for careful exploration or screens full of character stats. Conversely, early computer games were mostly being developed and played on university mainframe computers accessed via terminal. These were systems designed for education first. In fact, many early games for these systems are lost because administrators just kept deleting them. Petit 5, one of the earliest dungeon crawlers, survived mostly by having a generic name that blended in with other files. These systems could be slow to run, they often had monochrome monitors that only displayed one color, but players could get significantly more time to play them in one sitting. So these players tended to gravitate towards slower-paced, text-heavy games. This is also where we start seeing text adventures such as Colossal Cave Adventure and Zork. Some of these games weren't as big on the use of level, but as home computers became more common, they led to the rise of games like Rogue, Hack, Moria. These games continued the trend of worlds divided into different floors, which were often called levels. Even when they weren't explicitly named as levels, I think it helps solidify the idea of different areas of the game as being on different vertical levels from one another. I wondered if this might end up being another case of Japanese influencing gamer lingo in English, but in this case, I don't think so. Level was sometimes used for character level, especially toward the mid-80s in games such as Dragon Quest, but in earlier games it was much more common to see words like stage or area instead of level. Men, meaning face or surface, was often used the way English games use screen or board. In RPGs where level was quite common in English, Japanese games tended to use floor, either using the Japanese counter kai or as an English loanword, flora. It doesn't look like level became popular in Japan until the mid-80s, and even then it doesn't look like it ever really got as common as it did in North America. Just like in my video on the use of the word boss in gaming, I tried getting a look at what language was popular in different gaming magazines. Since this was before online discussion was common, published works are one of the only surviving records of what language different parts of the gaming industry were using. Issue 1 of Nintendo Power, published in 1988, uses a wide variety of words. In an article about Contra, they use zone, which lines up with its game manual. For Double Dragon, they use mission, despite the manual using stage. In other early issues, it's a widespread, but I think the word stage seems to be coming up more often. This holds pretty true even much later. Looking at this issue from 1993, 5 years later, in Guides to Star Fox and the Aliens 3 and Goof Troop games, they use stage. For Speedy Gonzales, they use zone. Then they used level when describing these Wile E. Coyote and Jurassic Park games. This EGM issue from the same year is similar. Level gets a lot of use, but they also use scene, section, and round within a few pages of each other. I suspected that magazines which reported on home computer gaming would have a higher rate of using level. So I took a look at issues of Zap 64 magazine, a gaming magazine which focused on Commodore 64 games. Even from its first issue, it showed a strong preference for using level over synonyms like stage, zone, or world. Crash magazine, which looked at gaming on the ZX Spectrum, showed a similar preference. I should also note that these are UK publications, so there's a chance that the difference might be between Europe and North America, and not between consoles and computers, as I suspect. Maybe there's going to be some European gamers in the comments who can help us figure out if this is a regional divide or a technological one. In 1980, only about 1% of American households owned a computer. By 1990, it had gone up to around 20%. It feels to me like level became more common in console gaming as more people were exposed to computer gaming, which was already showing a preference for the word. Again, I went back to check out game guidebooks. Much like the use of the word boss, it seems like many of these books also decided to use the word level pretty much exclusively. At this point, most gaming magazines were only writing about games on a particular system, but some of these companies wrote guides for games on pretty much every system, as well as specialized guides for particular games. I might be assigning too much significance to these books, but it does feel to me like they're a good source of standardizing terms across a wide variety of game genres and game systems. So what does it all mean? It's all a bit mixed up and fuzzy, but here's my best breakdown of what happened. Level was used extensively in Dungeons & Dragons right from the beginning. It was a convenient choice since the multiple definitions let them use the same word to indicate the depth of a floor, the rank of power for a character, or a monster. D&D inspired a lot of computer programmers who made games using similar terminology, including the word level. But at first, these multi-level games were being played on specialized computers that were only available to a very small population. At the same time, arcade games were becoming popular, but didn't usually have multiple levels and thus described their advances in terms of round or waves. Early home console games tended to have single-screen levels and still tended to use words like screen or board. But home computer systems had more games inspired by those early dungeon crawlers and adapted the use of the word level to a greater degree. In the mid-80s, we started the 8-bit era, where it was much more common to have games with many separate levels and a defined ending. The word level picks up a lot here, but it's still very common to see words like stage and world. Toward the late 80s and into the early 90s, it seems like there's a bit of a shift. The 16-bit era added more complexity to games, and it became more common to have a level being one playable chunk of a game, and stage or world being several levels with a similar theme. I think this is what really solidified the use of level over other words, but stage and world never really went away, even if they became less common. This seems to have held steady throughout the rest of the 90s and into the 2000s. Today, the video game level is in something of a decline.
So, how are your levels coming along? Well, I decided I'm not going to do it.
Early games were so small they didn't have separate levels, and now we've sort of gone full circle with open world games that have a map so big that also doesn't really get divided into levels. Games that are divided into levels often try to hide it. It's common to describe levels as missions. RPGs often have temples or dungeons. Multiplayer games like to use the word map instead of level. Gamers still use the word more generally. Oh man, not another water level. But the games with numbered levels are definitely a shrinking minority. And I think that brings us to the end of this one. Thanks again to all the people who wrote in with this suggestion, and to all of you for watching. If you've got a question or idea you'd like to see me cover, or you think I missed something in this video, let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.
The suspect said not only free Palestine yesterday, but he said in Israel. I mean, the state charges are one thing, but federal terrorism charges are probably going to happen as well.
Yep.
Meanwhile, you have CNN saying, you had some of their analysts and then Andrew McCabe getting on air as this is happening saying, why is the FBI saying there are terrorism charges here? Why?
This random fucking psycho shows up with Molotov cocktails to set Holocaust survivor Jews on fire and children and say spam free Palestine, and they're like, why are they saying this is terrorism? Well, wait a minute. Well, we're not sure what his motives are.
They're saying it's an act of terror. Well, the guy clearly said that he was targeting a certain group. He wanted to end the Jewish state. This is why they are saying, not only did the FBI say this, but the AG has said this, the governor has said it as well. And many people are wondering, when are we going to put an end to this? The same thing that he's saying, people are saying out on the streets, on college campuses, every single.
He knows, bro. He fucking knows. Thank God somebody is saying the shit. Yep. Here we go.
Single day.
Yeah, the Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, says this is not a political protester. This is a terrorist.
Yeah.
You had one witness, Alex Osante. He was eating lunch.
I mean, does anybody else think about the tremendous irony that this guy is throwing Molotov cocktails and setting Jewish children on fire, and the backdrop is a pride flag? I mean, this is like some kind of like fucking skit or something. Like some kind of like weird parody. At City Hall. Yeah, what the fuck?
Inside, and he heard the screams outside, so he went out to help the victims. He said the attacker was vicious and aggressive with his Molotov cocktail weapons, but it seemed like a couple of others were actually on his side, arguing for him, which didn't make sense.
What? Who? How do you see some guy throw a Molotov cocktail and light a Holocaust survivor, 88, 89-year-old woman on fire, and then you're like, well, wait a minute. Well, why did he do that?
Hats off to the officers who made it there quickly so that they could arrest him. Dan Bongino, Dan Bongino, the FBI number 2 there, said the leadership team is there on the ground with the FBI. The National Counterterrorism Center is there, according to Tulsi Gabbard, and local law enforcement is also investigating.
But here's the thing. Here illegally. Asked for asylum during the Biden years. They said no, but he kicked it out. Then somehow he gets a work visa to stay. Does anyone interview these people?
But Brian, it expired in March.
Yeah.
So he shouldn't be here.
Shouldn't have been extended to begin with. This is why Tom Homan and what the military is doing at our border and our great border patrols.
Why didn't they just go get him? Like after like a month, they're like, "Hey man, you're supposed to show up, but you're still here. Yeah, you got to go. It's past time. Yeah, you got to go."
Doing so matters as much too.
That's what
we got to get these people who are breaking our laws. Stop telling me they belong in the community and they're one of us. They go to the blue states, the blue cities, where they can thrive, and in this case, attack.
Not just that, Brian, what Marco Rubio is doing with the visas as well at the State Department. If you don't love this country, if you're going to cause harm to people in this country, you got to go. Let's bring in former Deputy Envoy Combat and
yeah, I think that's what they always should have done. I mean, like bringing in a bunch of random fucking foreign nationals that hate the country. Why the fuck would you do that? What other country would do that? It's retarded.
Anti-Semitism, Ellie Kohanem onto the program. Ellie, we want to get your general reactions to what's happening here, but a few questions about what's happening when it comes to the protest there. They're saying from the river to the sea. They're saying a global intifada, and they're saying free Palestine. What does that mean? Because these same people that are committing these acts of terrorism are saying those same chants.
They will be, the Free Palestine people will be forever lumped in with these actual terrorists because they refuse to condemn them. If you don't stop and cull your extremists, you will be defined by them. And that's what's happening to them right now, is that they are becoming defined by these extremists.
Lawrence, that's an excellent question, and I think that this latest heinous terror attack against Jewish Americans by this foreign national who burned Jews alive yesterday has to be a wake-up call for every American. I call upon all Americans to now stand up with your Jewish neighbors and friends and say enough is enough. We need
I'm gonna be honest, like, I don't give a fuck if they're Jewish or not. You're not supposed to set people on fire with Molotov cocktails. Anybody that thinks that's good, I want him out. You think that's a good idea, you're out. Nope. You're done. Get out. It's just that simple.
To face the facts that this so-called Free Palestine movement is in fact a pro-terror movement.
In the First Amendment, are Molotov cocktails in the First Amendment?
And we need to draw the line in the sand. There can be no longer any tolerance for this movement, which has left two Jews.
This is the problem, is that, like, I disagree with her on this. The idea that the entire Free Palestine movement is representative of a handful of terrorists is unfair and it's disingenuous. But the problem is that there are enough people in the Free Palestine movement that will make excuses and try to hand wave and hide their accountability from this. And this is what I was saying before. If you don't control your extremists, you will be defined by them. And they actively, they do not, like, it's very easy. Like, for example, like, if you go back, like, when January 6th happened, I woke up and I remember that day so clearly. I ended my stream early and I woke up and I saw Hassan had 150,000 viewers. And I was like, oh, fuck, what happened now? And I pull it up and I see January 6th happening. And that's what it was, right? And I was like, yeah, this is it. And I immediately tweet out, like, this is bad. It's bad. But you're better than a time, after a time you became pro-Israel. I never was pro-Israel. I've always been pro-America. Like that's always my viewpoint. That's what my viewpoint's been the entire time. I remember it clearly too. I fucking worked there. Yeah, there you go.
left, 2 Jews dead in the last 10 days, and now again, a Jew, a Holocaust survivor, is burned alive on American soil. This is just not America.
These are the people who are fighting against Nazis, by the way. These are the people calling you a Nazi. They're lighting Holocaust survivors on fire. I know. Couldn't have predicted that one, huh?
On our values. And to that point, you know, as you just mentioned, Mohammed Salman, the perpetrator, is an Egyptian national. He was let into our country by the Biden administration. And so the Biden administration's failed immigration policies are not victimless. In this case, it is Jewish Americans who are the victims. But let me remind everything, the hatred that starts with the Jews never ends with the Jews. And so truly all Americans are potential victims for these failed immigration policies.
Ellie, I've interviewed the lawyers for the hostage families. They have got a direct line between Iran, the Hamas, and these college kids on campus who are a lot of times in their late 20s and 30s. Like,
I would have never guessed. I'm so surprised. Wow. What a shock.
Mahmoud Khalil is 30 and graduated from graduate school. They don't belong here. What are you doing? Number two is, this has got to be unwound. We can't just say, oh, this crazy guy came to New York, did something, came to D.C. or blew up Josh Shapiro's house and then just burned somebody alive in Boulder, Colorado. These are just crazy people. There is direct links. And we're good at doing that ever since Al-Qaeda and 9/11. We've pulled back on that. But we got to get back to that right now and start identifying the direct line.
Am I the only person that this language makes me uncomfortable? I don't want the Patriot Act Part 2. I don't want more surveillance. And this is like, yeah, I don't want this at all. But that's what's going to happen if this keeps up. And I almost think, remember what I said before, is the government letting this happen so it can get bad enough that the people accept another Patriot Act? I don't know. I wish Kojima was here to make a new Metal Gear Solid. That way we would know. That would be great. Sure seems like a great plot.
To Gaza and Iran.
Exactly right, Brian. And look, this is part of what the Trump administration is doing in the short time that President Trump and the admin is now back in office. So what you're pointing to, Brian, is indeed the links between what's happening here on U.S. soil and foreign countries like the Islamic Republic of Iran. Look, under Biden, the DNI at that time Avril Lavigne came on the air and said that Iran was in fact funding some of the pro-terror, pro-Hamas movement on our campuses, and that perhaps unbeknownst to our American students, they were actually in touch with Iranian agents. So yes, this is absolutely correct that we've got foreign countries that are funding, perhaps organizing some of this activity.
They told the hostages that.
Yes.
They told them that in the tunnels.
That's right.
While they're being held, he says, we have links and we have supporters in America.
Somebody says 100 plus dead in Gaza, yet we're talking about 5 dead Jews being the end of the world. Our government's occupied. Who's it occupied by? Who's it occupied by? Guys, I know this might sound crazy, but it's possible to care about 2 things at the same time. Has it ever occurred to you that setting 5 Jews on fire makes it to where people aren't going to be as focused on the dead in Gaza because they've shifted the focus away to the violence that's happened to these people? Has it ever occurred to you that maybe you're making my argument for me? That this takes attention away from the actual victims? Well, you're never going to explain it because you know this is Boningo Zionist shill. This is another one, Holocaust survivor, that'll make them like 120 years old. 83. You are in your 40s. You're 41 years old probably. You can't do math? This is crazy. That's crazy, man. 41 years old, you can't fucking do math. Jesus.
Campuses. They told us that.
Yeah. Ellie, what's so disturbing about this is they were protesting. This group is called Run for Their Lives because that's what the hostages were trying to do. And they meet weekly to have these marches. They run and they walk, the organizers in particular.
Fucking idiot. Yeah, almost all of them are. The thing is that even like the people that should be calling this out first should be the pro-Palestine people. They should be the ones that are like ahead of the ball on this and like ahead of the curve and saying immediately, this person is insane, they're crazy, they don't represent us, we don't support this person's awful, we completely support the victims, and that's it, right? That's what they should be immediately doing, instantaneously.
Participants do, and they meet there in Boulder, Colorado, just to support getting these hostages out so that they can come home. And I thought last night when I was watching this breaking news, if I wanted to go to one of these marches, I might think twice now because I'm worried about copycats.
Well, that's exactly right, and that Ainsley
that's the goal of terrorism. That's why he did it. That's the point. Is they're trying to kill people that do it to scare people from doing it. That's the whole point. Congratulations, we've just defined terrorism.
Is what terrorism is. What terrorism does is that it aims to silence good people. It aims to scare all Americans from speaking up against this kind of hatred, for trying to bring attention to the plight of the hostages, which this group of Jewish Americans was doing yesterday. But look, we cannot let the terrorists win. We cannot let these foreign nationals who come onto our soil silence Americans and try to somehow impact our values. So we all need to stand with the Trump administration as they seek to deport the foreign nationals who are here illegally. We need the sanctuary city.
Not enough. Not enough. You need to be proactive. You need to be proactive, and you need to have these people going into these different areas and these spaces where these extremists are, and then catching these people and stopping them before they do this. That's the issue. Yeah, it's still not good enough.
Governors and mayors to wake up. This is a wake-up call, and stop these policies, because these policies are not victimless. Again, yesterday it was Jewish Americans. Tomorrow it can be anyone. Anyone in this country could be targeted by these illegals who are here. So I would say these Democrats have to just get out of the way and let the Trump administration succeed in the policies that they're trying to put forward.
Or use this as an opportunity to combine with...
Somebody says, I like you, and what the guy did should be punishable by death, but do you believe that anyone wanting peace supports this and like they planned and supported the attack? I think that enough people run defense for this that it looks like they do. That's the problem. I know that a lot of them don't support it, but I think that a lot of thought leaders inside of the pro-Palestine movement are afraid of calling out these bad actors because they don't want backlash from their extreme audience, right? Part of their audience. Like, they don't want to anger the 20% of people that are actually in favor of militancy. And so they just kind of, you know, are, yeah, that's crazy. Wow. Like, yeah, this is about it, right? And so, like, because, yeah, they don't want to say that and alienate part of their audience.
The Trump administration, Chuck Schumer, Jared Polis, Governor Shapiro. So how about a press conference with Trump officials saying, we got to stop this, right? Well, what would be the problem about doing that?
Well, yeah, I mean, that would be great if we could be bipartisan and really face
If they want to get rid of the extremism on the internet, they can just DM me on Twitter. Yeah, just DM me. And I could just fix it. It's not a big deal. Yeah, like, I'll tell you where it is. It's obvious where it is. You just DM me. It's impossible. It's easy. Yeah, it's fucking easy. Like, you could solve this problem in like a month. Like, straight up. Like, you actually could solve it in a month. Aren't you tired of them saying about Biden administration's fault 6 months in? I'm not even thinking about that. I think that's fair for you to say that. I don't see you say anything. Let me see if I can read your comment, because this is a disagreeer, I think. Let me see what you're saying. You are pro-USA, and that's right, but I don't see how you feel most of you react to Hamas wrong, which is fair. Well, because Hamas are the ones that are attacking and terrorizing people here in the U.S. Not really Hamas, but Hamas supporters. If the IDF was doing that, I would also be against it. I'm against AIPAC. I was critical of how everybody was jumping up, like clapping seals with like Benjamin Netanyahu coming and doing a speech here. The fact is, I see you avoid talking about the other side, even though for some reason someone inside the USA, because they're not actively terrorizing people. That's the reason why. Like that's the big reason. If there is a Jewish person who went in and threw a Molotov cocktail at a bunch of pro-Palestine people, what do you think I would say? No, really, what do you think I would say about this? Yeah, well, anyway, like I'll just go ahead and I'll answer because I don't want to waste too much time on this bullshit, right? But in general, I would say immediately that it's evil and it's wrong and it's bad and it shouldn't be accepted at all, and the person should be sent to jail or deported if they're not from this country, right? I mean, like. It's literally that simple. So I mean, the entire premise that you're creating is totally a false premise. Sorry, delay. Yeah, no, it's okay. But like, no, the reason why I'm giving asymmetrical criticism is because there's asymmetrical actions. I've never said anything in favor of the IDF ever. I don't give a fuck about the IDF. And if I had a bunch of people here protesting and saying how great it was that the IDF was killing kids in Palestine, I'd say that they were disgusting. It's just not even a question. I know you stand. I'm not talking about that part. Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. It's really that simple? Yeah, it is.
Facts that anti-Semitism, standing up to anti-Semitism should be bipartisan. I grew up in this country. I remember when that was the case. I remember when Democrats could stand up with the Jewish community and could stand with Israel. It's really sad to see how the Democrats have devolved to where they are today. So I'm with you, Brian. I also
They haven't been devolved. They've been taken hostage. They have been taken hostage by the most extreme and most radical 20% or 10%, and they can't remove them without alienating the entire party. That's the issue.
Welcome Chuck Schumer to stand with President Trump and stand up against anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
We don't need any more tweets from Chuck Schumer.
Yeah.
We don't need him. We don't need him to write books. Exactly. We don't need prayers.
Right about that.
We need action from these Democrats. And the first thing they can do is stop their sanctuary city policies.
Yeah. And the
Stop
second would be the
hosting.
college campuses.
Exactly right.
Thank you so much. And Ilhan Omar, if she would stand with Chuck Schumer and President Trump.
She's a lost
This is
cause.
terrorist. This is violent. This is so violent. Someone was burned alive in America at a protest.
By the way, Umbrella.
Thank you, Ellie, for joining the program.
Thank you, Ellie.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I guess we're never going to find out what the umbrella is. The Paris, so this is in Paris?
Wesh! Wesh! Il y a une caméra au-dessus de lui, tu sais. Wesh!
Damn, bro, what the fuck?
Ils vont jamais avancer les voitures là.
Oh my god, look at all this. Uh-oh. So this guy, I love how the guy in the back stayed behind to light something on fire. Look at him. He's like, wait a minute, guys, I gotta get my stuff before I... Okay, yeah, I'm good. Oh my god, look at this. Jesus. Jesus. Let's see if there's any more of these. Bro, I'm not even kidding. The Nevrons in Expedition 33 didn't fuck up Paris this bad. This is insane. Really? Think about that. Oh my god. Not even New York compares to this? Yeah, this is nothing. Like, this is crazy. Let me see if I can find a few of these more, and if there's any of these other posts about the Paris riots, because yeah, people have been absolutely popping off and going fucking crazy about this. An actual fucking crash out. Literal fucking crash out in Paris. Wow. Jesus, guys. Yeah, and this is in Paris, France. Oh my god. That's a riot. Jesus. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Boom, bitch. Yep. Wow. Man, not a riot at all? Yep. These are the scenes of the Paris riots again. Dude. Spray him down. Oh my god. Jesus. And this happened a couple of days ago, too. Yeah, this is a mostly peaceful protest, obviously, right? Holy shit. And this is the one that we saw before. I mean, this is super violent. Like, this is crazy, bro. Like, there's a bunch of people crowding around a car like this, and they bust out her window. Look at this. This is animal behavior. Oh my god. This shit is savage. Oh my god, yeah, drive through them. I mean, I wouldn't hold it against them, I'll tell you that. And that's a picture. This is a good one. Damn, that's a good one. Wow, cinema? Yeah. Like, you don't see a lot of them that are like this. This is for the history books? Yeah, yeah. AI could never. I mean, honestly, this could be AI. Like, I don't know, maybe it is. But 2 people, more than 400 cars were burned, 2 people were killed, 192 injured, including 22 police officers, 559 people arrested in Paris alone for rioting and looting. Oh my god. Jesus. How is this even something to celebrate? You tipped over the big thing with a bunch of stuff in it. What the hell are you doing? Jesus. Bro. Bro, what? It's an ammo bin? Yeah. Oh my god. Well, this one seems mostly okay. This seems like a celebration. Dude. Oh, God. Oh, boy. Is it starting to make sense now why I think that the EU is going to elect a new Adolf pretty soon? Somewhere in the EU, this is going to happen. This radicalizes so many people. It's going to be worse? I think so. I think it will be. I've been trying to talk about this, and everybody said that I was crazy, but I think that every single time that something like this happens, it becomes more obvious that this is probably what the next outcome is going to be. The only question that I have is that, is this by design? Is it by design that the people that are in charge of the government want to create a society that's created so much friction and unrest that people look to authoritarian regimes as a solution in order to play the long game to maintain and consolidate power? That's the big question. And I think the answer is yes and no. I think there's probably some people that see it that way, but other people that are just useful idiots. I think primarily it's useful idiots. Oh, wow. Again, Expedition 33 Nevrons didn't even do this shit. This is bad. Wow. Jesus. Just why? I don't know. Bro, this is insane. This is really bad. Look at them all. What the fuck are they even saying? What are they saying? Baguette? Oh, yeah, that makes sense, because this is in... Look at all this. They're just... So basically what they're doing is they're dumping over, let me guess, in Paris, there are very large containers that people are supposed to put glass in, and these people are tipping them over as effectively ammo boxes. That's pretty much what's happening, right? Yes. It's a loot crate. Yeah, exactly. That's right. Okay, so the police officer's on fire. That's great. Yeah. Imagine thinking this isn't a riot. This is awful. Poor police? Yeah, I guess so. But as Macquarie make this a race issue? I think that these issues have been exacerbated by, like, massive, like, mass migration and, like, not vetting people and bringing in a bunch of people at the same time and then having them not integrate into society. But if you look at the actual crowd, it's very hard to say because, like, some people in this crowd are just celebrating maybe the football thing, but other people are being violent. And so a lot of these people are white. It's not like everybody here that's bad is like, everybody who's part of this is like black or something or like brown skin. Like, you can clearly see that's not the case here. But a lot of them are wearing ski masks as well, so it's hard to say. It's mixed footage? Yeah, it's also mixed footage as well.
Quella metà inferiore di mappa. Adesso Khan sta mantenendo alta la pressione su questa corsia inferiore, non cedendo terreno al rumble avversario. La mid lane in ottimo push grazie alla presenza di Lucian e anche Nami ad accompagnarlo. C'è un po' di visione che Humanoid adesso sta provando a mitigare, rimuovere e riconquistare dalla sua. Razzorca al fianco, Miki prova il counter engage ma non trova nessuno con il charm. I Fnatic dovranno ritirarsi da questa play. Yike, mezza runa difensiva però già spesa e qua se ne vanno molte delle risorse di survivability di quello Shinzao nel teamfight. Canada al fianco, spera di isolare un bersaglio e lo trova. Humanoid sul fianco, adesso anche la bolla della nanna lo addormenterà, permetterà di chiudere la kill sul singolo target. Vantaggio numerico piccolo ma decisivo per il drago.
E sono un po' di meno anche
giustificazioni alla partita di Humanoid, che ha piccato un Rise, non si è fatto vedere col portale dei reami, non sono riusciti a rompere col portale dei reami questa linearità del fight che i Karmine Corp ricercano, molto forti a prevenire l'inserimento frontale dell'avversario con il poke di Vladi, con mezz'ora difensiva e mareggiata. Avrei voluto vedere un po' più di call coraggiose su questo Rise per aggirare il problema, arrivare da due diverse direzioni, magari da una con Rakan in velocità sulla ulti, dall'altra scanner attraverso il muro. Invece sono sempre troppo telegrafati. Naturalmente non è una responsabilità individuale di Humanoid, però giusto ieri parlavo con Roberto dello studio un po' personale del laboratorio di ricerca Veigar V2, che sta cercando un po' di sviscerare il pick di Rise per renderlo potabile un pochino di più all'Occidente, dice lui, perché in Occidente non giochiamo l'aspetto tempo del champion, col portale dei reami, col playmaking del campione, come fanno invece ad esempio in Corea. E quindi è un champion che, per quanto stiamo cercando di emulare i coreani nel piccarlo, non lo stiamo piccando per ciò per cui lo piccano i coreani.
Uno sterminio di Calista mette giù un bel po' di danni sulla barra della vita di Humanoid, che per di arrivare più in salute possibile al prossimo fight, ma continua l'ottimo lavoro di Calista con dell'archibugio, il range extra, l'auto-attack potenziato, fa tanto. Nel frattempo sulle sidelane agiscono due solo laner, Vladi per i Karmine Corp in top lane, Oscarinin per i Fnatic in bot lane. Entrambi conquisteranno almeno una prima struttura e faciliteranno il push verso la seconda. Karmine Corp adesso circa 2500 gold di vantaggio. Man mano che ci avviciniamo al 20° minuto, che porterà allo spawn di Atakan e presto anche l'obbligo di fight importanti, visto che tra 3 minuti circa ci sarà il regroupo obbligatorio per la lotta per l'anima della nuvola.
Due KS7 in 20 minuti, dovremo star comunque viaggiando su una partita un po' più composta, un po' più ordinata e recuperabile per i Fnatic rispetto al Game 1, anche per identità di draft, soprattutto per identità di draft. Qui già alcuni dei pick del Game 1 sarebbero caduti nel vuoto, la Calista, ogni tanto mi chiamo la Calista, la Calista e il Pantheon. Poi invece sono ancora in grado di chiudersi a riccio e scalare, naturalmente non possono però mancare l'appuntamento con la Soul. Non è una Soul particolarmente punitiva, non è un Hextech, non è una Infernale, una Mountain, una Ocean, è delle Soul che meno ti fanno impazzire l'idea di cedere all'avversario purché tu stia scalando, però insomma sempre di Soul si tratta, e dopo la Soul viene l'Elder, e se non si avanti per l'Elder perdi altrettanto facilmente il game. Quindi bisogna trovare in questa finestra di 2 minuti e qualcosina il comeback, il guizzo sulla partita che metta risorse nelle tasche di Rumble, Rise o Xayah e che ti dia la chance di giocare. Qui provano una giocata in profondità col portale.
Prova l'aggressione, ma Targa su un ottimo flash
Inneschi
per portarsi
troppo forti.
fuori dall'engage. Razork trovato gli avversari, ci prova ad acchiappare il jungler nemico. Yai però ancora quella mezzaluna per mitigare del tutto il danno avversario. Nell'inseguimento i Karmine Corp si prendono la vita di Razork. GC nuovamente a riconquistare la priorità sulla corsia centrale, a ruotare sul fiume, a dirigersi verso quell'attack che già avevano startato, poi corretta in traiettoria. Ci prova Vladi dall'enorme gittata a disturbare Upset in mid lane, ma Kalista e Yike sono già sull'obiettivo.
Anche qui tanti elementi di questo arrembaggio col portale dei reami sono andati storti. Non è certo responsabilità del solo Razork o del solo Humanoid. Occhio tipi alle spalle, provano a chiudere sull'Atakan.
Vediamo se la tenaglia dei Fnatic questa volta può portare qualcosa di favorevole. Oscar dal fianco con la ulti che linea molto bene sui cari avversari. Arriva lo smite, ma non è preciso. Sarà Oscar a rubare via l'Atakan e prendersi uno shutdown su Yike. Kanna interrompe subito la foga del top laner nemico, rispondendo a tono, Miki avanti a proteggere Humanoid. Kanna, colosso con il town, prende tempo, fa scappare gli alleati. 1 per 1, ma Atakan preso dai Fnatic.
Atakan preso, sono 24 Blood Petals risvegliati, niente male, niente male. Un gran bel guizzo questo. Ci voleva. Oscar con un perfetto livellatore, tra l'altro mi è piaciuto tantissimo perché l'ha castato quasi in predict. Non l'ha castato corto sull'Atakan, l'ha castato molto più sulla linea di fuga. Quindi appena hanno visto l'animazione del livellatore si sono portati perfettamente dentro al livellatore di Oscar. L'ha tirato un po' in predict, massimizzando il danno, massimizzando lo zoning perché poi si è rallentato, e avendo la chance quindi di chiudere lui sul Atakan con il lanciafiamme up, riuscendo a punire uno smite impreciso di Ike. Molto bella la giocata di Oscar qui.
Ben fatto. Il Rumble dovrà un po' essere responsabile in ripresa della squadra. Razor che
non
già
riesce a giocare
ciancato
il fight,
sotto la metà vita. Non è facile il lavoro del tank contro la comp nemica. Calista dentro
che
un altro
sperla
affondo,
su
tanti
Miki.
danni su Miki, una stella. Riesce per quasi rimandarlo al creatore. Miki in fin di vita deve
si
tirarsi
possono
fuori da
avvicinare,
questa
non
break.
possono
Ancora una volta
avvicinarsi.
avanti, Razor prova a scappare attraverso il muro, ma Vladi chiude la kill. Non c'è range per contrattaccare contro questo Lucian Zoe.
Difficilissimo, difficilissimo. Quando gioca da davanti Zoe è invalicabile. La comp puntava a scalare, ma se cedi terreno all'avversario mentre scali, non stai forse compromettendo le fondamenta stesse per cui la comp, anche una volta scalata, è giocabile? Cioè il fatto che sei completamente outrangeato quando provi a approcciare gli obiettivi. Oscar picoffato.
Oscar dalla mareggiata, c'è una bolla, la purificazione offerta da Miki, prova a metterci anche il knock-up e riesce a tirare fuori dai guai il suo top laner. Ottimo intervento di salvataggio qui di Miki.
Generano almeno sufficiente pressione da mandare in base Oscar e prendere torre esterna in bot. 3 torri a 2, 2007 gold. Non sono tantissimi per la comp delle due che gioca con qualche elemento di scaling di meno. Il fatto è che poco importa la qualità dello scaling della comp dei Karmine Corp se giocano da davanti. È proprio quello il punto.
Non importa se giocano solo loro, come molto spesso vediamo accadere in tanti di questi scenari. Fnatic non hanno meno l'opportunità di affacciarsi a tanti fight. Oscar subito danneggiato, rallentato da Khalees che si va avanti addirittura con lo sterminio. Non manca nemmeno un proiettile, soltanto il portale dei reami lo porta a fare un passo indietro e abbandonare la caccia.
Per ora però questo Rise sembra veramente la versione scarsa di una Syndra. Non hai il range del disperdi il debole, non hai il danno burst del potere senza limiti. Usi questo portale dei reami con lo stesso fare con cui appunto cammineresti avanti minacciandola e... non so, mi sembra veramente un pick da rivedere, un po' da ricalcolare come un percorso al navigatore è andato male. Non vedo il champion giocato per ciò per cui è forte nei campionati LPL del CK, però la smetterò con questa mia battaglia personale. Ci sono stati ottimi interpreti del champion in Europa. Questa partita di Humaned certamente non sta rendendo giustizia al champion. Tra l'altro è arrivato in risposta a Zoe, giusto? Era Zoe R4, Rise è uscito in B4B5, o era addirittura... no, Zoe era in R5. No, Zoe era in R5.
Yes.
No. Ok, almeno c'è quell'attenuante.
Si inizia a lottare un pochino per la visione attorno al barone. Lavorano i Karmine Corp sul pulire o accecare i lumi avversari. Razor nuovamente in fronte a tankarsi un po' la prima linea d'assalto avversaria. Tanti ne su Yike, Miki dal fianco, un ottimo charm, doppio knock-up, bravissimo però Yike con la mezzaluna a spingere subito via gli attaccanti dei Fnatic e possono arrivare dal fianco adesso i veri danni dei Karmine Corp. Khalees dal flank a raccogliere la tripla, un'ecatombe in un battito di ciglia. Karmine Corp ne firmano 4 e volano sul barone.
Se perde, perde male sta comp dei Fnatic, senz'altro. Se perde, perde veramente male, senza dare nemmeno l'impressione di essere stata in partita. Appunto, giocano short range, giocano come una falange oplitica, devono essere tutti vicini, tutti buttarsi dentro, dietro allo Skarner, dietro al Rakan. Penso che Miki abbia fatto una partita paradossalmente sullo 0-3-4 quasi perfetta per quelle che erano le possibilità di questo Rakan e di questo primary engage. Penso abbia giocato veramente molto bene. Sapete che non sono di certo un apologeta di Miki, però sì, c'è pochissimo da fare quando la comp avversaria va così tanto avanti. La gittata di range non la puoi comprare, non la puoi fissare con gli acquisti, non la puoi fissare con lo scaling. E stiamo vedendo uno Skarner completamente gambe all'aria.
Purtroppo un game che sembra impossibile da giocare per Razork. Mai nel range dei suoi avversari, mai senza essersi preso almeno il 50% della sua barra della vita da un assalto nemico. Yike dentro, bellissimo il flash, trova il knock-up, serve l'8ª uccisione a Calist. Prendono torre interna e marciano avanti con ancora 2 minuti di barone. I Carmine Corp dovrebbero forse riuscire a chiuderla nella durata di questo buff. Fnatic non particolarmente comodi sulla difesa dal push avversario. La torre dell'inibitore botlane cade, si marcia sul prossimo obiettivo. Vladi a disturbare Oscarinin che prova a difendere la mid lane. Kalis continua a minacciare ogni scatto avanti, è una scarica di danni sul primo target a tiro. Torre del Nexus numero 1 che addirittura va giù. Miki prova dalla lunga distanza a poppare la suprema, trova un knock-up su Yai che si diverte però molto bene. Humanoid cancellato dai danni della comp rivale, e i Carmine Corp ancora forti di 5 campioni tornano a marciare avanti su un tank che il suo lavoro l'ha fatto fin troppo e fin troppo male in questa partita. Khan addirittura riesce a flashare via e salvarsi dal laser della fontana. Non c'è spazio per rispondere a questi Carmine Corp. In 28 minuti e mezzo si portano a match point.
Li capisco un po' i ragazzi in chat, li capisco. Questa improvvisa voglia di fare fantamercato.
Ma li capisco cosa? Ma guardatevi la partita invece che rompere i...
Che era il nuovo testimone. Hai visto la pubblicità di Mara Maionchi che esce sempre nelle ad di YouTube dove dice le parolacce? Ah, che ridere Marona Maioncona quando dice le parolacce. Sì, è difficile questa comp, non gioca bene da dietro. Era completamente outrangeata, era tenuta in scacco dalle 2 abilità da disengage non committal che c'erano nella composizione dei Carmine Corp. Lo Shinja è andato avantissimo, Lucio è andato avantissimo, il Pialo era collocato in un matchup molto buono. Se perdeva rovinosamente di certo sta mappa. Se riuscivano a disinnescare alcune delle giocate iniziali e avere uno scaling un po' più, non da una posizione di svantaggio ma una posizione di parità, avremmo visto una mappa diversa. Quello che non giustifico, quello che secondo me è un errore concettuale gravissimo, è quello stramaledetto Artsteel. Ha chiuso con 0 stack tra l'altro, non so se hai visto.
Non mi stupisce.
Ha chiuso con 0 stack di Artsteel.
Guarda, faccio un po' un gioco kenreniano e ti dico, probabilmente quello Skarner meno danni di chiunque altro in partita? Non faticherei a crederlo.
Salve, sono il
Quante
notaio.
volte l'abbiamo...
Mumbai ha ragione.
Quante volte l'abbiamo...
Eccoci.
Quante volte
meno
l'abbiamo
danni
visto...
del Rakan?
Quante volte abbiamo visto fare qualcosa? Certo, Rakan ha trovato diversi knock-up, ha toccato avversari con ulti, era presente nel fight e moriva schiantandosi di forza contro i nemici. Skarner moriva avvicinandosi ai nemici e venendo sparato via da Lucian e Zoe.
Salve, sono sempre io, il notaio. La metà dei danni di Nami.
Beh, ok. E quanti danni rispetto a Rakan?
Non te lo dico.
Allora vai a cacare, Roberto, va bene? Ce lo farà vedere nel post-game breakdown? Non ce lo farà vedere nel post-game breakdown? Chi lo sa? Scopriremo a breve.
Secondo me non ce lo farà vedere. Metterà un quadratone nero sopra la barra dei danni.
Il post-game breakdown sarà quello della partita in cui ti ho beccato in solo queue e ho giocato Miss Fortune.
Bravo. L'hai raccontata questa? Ti sei...
No!
Sei andato a vantare?
Che tu ci creda o no, è ancora un segreto di stato.
Beh, ormai non...
Ho lo screenshot ovviamente, ma per me. È per me.
Per quelle notti solitarie.
Per quelle faccio come il meme di Wolverine che carezza la foto svaccato sul letto. Però sì, voglio dire, condivido un po' l'amarezza perché si perde male, però vi giuro che le draft non aiutano a perdere bene, non erano scaling versus scaling dove te la batti per un po' e poi c'è il back and forth e poi ne puoi uscire. Se perdevi malissimo con entrambe le comp dei Fnatic. Quello che voglio capire anch'io mentre scorreranno le immagini della partita, nel corollario Jungle is mid difference, quanta colpa sia di Humanoid, quanta colpa sia di Razork, perché comunque le draft non stanno aiutando, è vero, ma non riuscire a avere un momento nelle 2 partite dove posso dire ah, guarda lì, una dualità, mi danno finalmente la sensazione di essere una coppia, un jungle mid duo. Scavo nei cassetti della memoria ma non trovo niente. Mickey e Oscar hanno fatto una partita con il poco che avevano dalla loro, eroica a dir poco. Veramente una partita eroica dei due. Hanno fatto quello che potevano per vincerla ed era veramente rarissimo trovare delle finestre per esercitare questo ascendente sulla partita. Kanna intoccabile, Kanna penso sia al momento... Se in Winter c'era un Vladi veramente unicorno nel campionato, per distacco il miglior midlaner del campionato, penso che quel titolo ora lo si debba attribuire a Kanna. Penso sia il giocatore per distacco più forte del nostro campionato, in un ruolo che secondo me ha anche visto un po' di inflessione. Anche qui potremo discuterne. È un ruolo che ha visto un po' di inflessione dei top. Non so, così, esperienza aneddotica, c'ho questo vibe, poi se volete approfondiamo. Però Kanna veramente intoccabile, upset cattedrale nel deserto completa, non può farci niente. Ecco qua il grafico. Ah, non ha fatto meno da dire a Kanna, ok. Perché comunque, oddio, sì, 4-3 a 5-6, ho visto un 2, 5-6 Rakan, 4-3 Skarner. Veramente inverecondo questo grafico post partita. E c'era questo pericolo draftando Skarner in alta.
Sì, tendenzialmente sì. La grande vulnerabilità di questa comp dei Fnatic probabilmente la si può attribuire a una difficoltà di engage. È vero che hai Rakan, non sei una comp senza engage, ma hai un solo engage. È un engage che preferisce, che è molto difficile rendere l'engage primario. Rakan può fare quelle giocate bellissime come quella che ha fatto sulla corsia centrale e se da fare un teamfight divino per la sua squadra. Ma quante volte lo puoi fare affidabilmente in una partita? Ti serve avere il flash, ti serve avere l'angolo buono, la copertura di visione. Non qualcosa purtroppo che i Fnatic avevano garantito, e in tutti gli altri scenari Skarner era lì che mi avvicino agli avversari, li guardo, nel frattempo Lucian e Zoe si divertono. Un Lucian che ha giocato pienamente spavaldo come quello di Kalista, veramente una gran performance dai Karmine Corp in Game 1 e Game 2. Questo mi inizia a sapere sempre di più di... Tornano le vibe da Winter Split, tornano le vibe da sì, questi sono i nostri campioni in carica, ora li conosco. Non sono quei Karmine Corp con eccesso di spavalderia che abbiamo visto nel primo round di playoff, sono dei Karmine Corp che si sono fatti il loro bagno di umiltà e adesso sanno che devono rimboccarsi le maniche e fare sul serio. E adesso sono a un game dal prendere questa serie e tornare nel weekend delle finali alla
Microsoft has just been stepping in doo-doo on the Windows side of things pretty much left and right lately. They had their whole fiasco with Recall last year,
which they've just kept
Windows
poking at.
We've got a video coming soon comparing original Recall and new Recall, and it is better, but is still
it's still a Recall,
deeply problematic.
Nice.
Windows has just felt like such a bloated mess lately, dude. I had to go through the initial setup wizard recently, and it's just like, can I just use my computer? Can you just... You don't need to know if I need it for entertainment or media or game. I mean, all of it. Just move.
Windows device setup is horrible.
Get out of the way.
It's actually terrible.
None of this matters.
I remember, like, I don't know, late 2000s, new device setup, honestly, MacBook or Windows was like kind of a cool experience. And now it just sucks. I don't know about MacBook. I haven't done it in a long time. But the Windows laptop setup is terrible.
And then meanwhile, Dave 2D compared two identical Legion Go S's, one with Windows 11 and the other with SteamOS. The SteamOS version outperformed its Windows counterpart by, I gotta say, a shocking amount. Like, I remember not that long ago when Windows consistently was faster than Linux for gaming.
Yeah.
That is no longer the case. Spider-Man 2 out of Cyberpunk, you guys are going to have to go check out the video if you want the exact numbers, because it's Dave 2D's numbers. But out of Cyberpunk, Helldivers 2, Doom Eternal, Spider-Man 2, and Witcher 3, only one of them was a win for Windows 11 compared to SteamOS, and just barely. Like, I am talking by like like run-to-run variance, 1 frame per second difference. And this is in spite of the fact that we're dealing with the Proton compatibility layer. Like, that is mind-blowing. That's how far Linux drivers have come, and that's how much less overhead SteamOS offers compared to Windows. Not to mention that on the SteamOS version of the Legion OS, you're not paying for Windows. So it's over $100 cheaper at retail, according to his video. We also saw a similar performance delta in a video from Random Gaming HD's video comparing an identical system running both Windows 10 and SteamOS. So in this case, it was a desktop system with a 12400F processor, 16 gigs of RAM, a 6500 XT GPU, and a 256 gig NVMe SSD. SteamOS once again won, this time in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Black Myth Wukong, and Forza Horizon 4. CS2 was a win for Windows, but I mean, SteamOS got over 150 FPS, so it's not like it's really an issue anyway. Meanwhile, in other Windows gaming news, Microsoft is apparently temporarily sidelining their rumored Xbox handheld gaming device to focus on optimizing the Windows 11 gaming experience, especially for mobile devices.
Good luck with that.
Their cloud gaming device and ROG Ally 2 collab seem to be unaffected. This is, I don't know, good news? I don't know what it is. Because on the one hand, it's not like Microsoft clearly is incapable of building a streamlined, low-overhead operating system for gaming. Literally, that's what runs on the Xbox. But whether Windows has just gotten too bloated, or whether they've been unfocused, or whether their partners are not delivering on the driver quality that they need, and they're...
Maybe.
Yeah, probably not that as
Probably
much. It's clear that Windows gaming has gone, like, they can't figure it out, can they?
My lack of enthusiasm for this, I think, is based around like practically every time that they've tried to touch it, they've just either done nothing or made it worse, as far as my understanding goes.
They've done some cool stuff. I mean, remember back...
Gaming mode was worse, if you remember.
I'm not talking about gaming mode, but remember Vista had that, like...
Dude, okay. When's the launch date of Vista, bro?
I'm just saying.
January 30th, 2007!
Okay. In Vista...
It's been almost 20 years.
In Vista, there was a My Games folder that
terrifying.
Consolidated the location of all your game like config files and save files and everything.
I remember that.
This was back before cloud save was just a thing you could take for granted in every game. And it was super useful because when you reformat it or whatever, you could just grab that folder, make sure you back it up, and dump it into that folder again on the new system, except for the games that didn't put their stuff in there. Those ones you had to go hunting for, so it still kind of sucked. But yeah, Microsoft just can't. I mean, Games for Windows Live seemed well-intentioned.
What happened to that folder?
But was horrible. Yeah, the folder went away. Games for Windows Live went away. That one we're happy about.
We're stoked on that one.
Yeah, we're pretty
Except it didn't fully go away, did it?
I mean, mostly.
Yeah.
Like
the ways that it was bad back then are gone, but they still have their like Microsoft login, which is horrible.
Oh, dude.
You were talking the other day about how it just like it makes you re-log in or something.
So no, what happens is, and I don't know if it's specific to Minecraft Dungeons or something, but because we would often go months between playing it, my kids and I like played Minecraft Dungeons for a bit. It's a Diablo clone. It's Minecraft skinned anyway. It's kind of fun. So we'd go sometimes months between playing. So I would have to log in 4 accounts. And for some reason, mine was bugged so that and of course your password manager doesn't work properly with like a pop-up inside a game.
Yeah.
So sometimes the game would get bugged. So the prompt like wouldn't show up in the pop-up and you'd have to like go delete some config file to get it to show up. And then when it would show up, for some reason, something to do with my account, whether it's because it's like an LMG account or whether it's because it's like a parent account or something. I don't know. But if I typo my password, that's it. I have to reset my password. There's no like go back and try again, nothing. It immediately goes, you need to reset your password.
Yeah.
If I enter it wrong one time.
I enter passwords wrong all the time.
Well, yeah, because my passwords are long and have special characters and stuff. So I'm at the point now where when I enter my Microsoft password, I'm like, finger peck. to make sure that I get it right, because I don't mind changing my passwords once in a while. It's a good security practice. What I don't like is changing my passwords all the time, especially when they're ones that I use every day, and I do kind of try to memorize because it's more convenient than, I'm unlocking my phone and then open the app and then authenticate the app and then navigate to the... I hate password managers. So where were we going with this? Right, yeah, gaming on Windows is an absolute dumpster fire. Dude, the fact that it takes like 10 minutes to go from like first opening the game to actually driving a car in Forza is
I was just going to bring up Forza because I actually really, really liked Horizon 5. And it's the first racing game in a very long time that I was like, I want my friends to come play this with me. I convinced one person to buy the game and play with me. I am very lucky that they had a great time with the game single player, because playing with them multiplayer just didn't work. And I just stopped recommending the game to all my friends because I was like, we can't play together anyways, so they'll either find it themselves or whatever, I guess. And it was purely because of like Microsoft's junk matchmaking and login stuff. You try to play Halo, you launch on Steam, everything's fine, bwomp, login. Well, cool. Invite people to the party, maybe they don't show up, things don't work like a huge percentage of the time.
Or they are working, but like you can't see their avatar.
See it.
And we all know that seeing the avatar is the whole point anyway, so they can sell more skins. So,
so
get it right, Microsoft.
How does that part not work? I don't know. It's
to be clear, I'm rooting for Microsoft to fix this. Like I'm super into it. Competition is good. I don't want a SteamOS monopoly in gaming any more than I want a Windows monopoly in gaming.
Yeah,
that's not healthy either. I want this fixed, especially because there's always going to be edge cases that Proton compatibility layer can't fix. Older games or whatever the case may be. Like I want Windows to be a robust gaming platform. I'm starting to lose hope, and this is interesting. The battery life testing was fascinating. Dave's video is called "Windows Was the Problem All Along," and the full load tests
great title, by the way,
are not that interesting. The battery life when you're really running everything full tilt, relatively similar. I mean, not the same, not the same at all, but relatively, at least within the same sort of
Windows still
area.
loses.
But when you're running like lower, less demanding, like side scroller type games, SteamOS absolutely steamrolls Windows, like to a degree that I wouldn't have thought was possible.
We'll get more into it when we get to that outro section, but I was playing Final Fantasy VI on my laptop on the plane, and I was very lucky that it had a full fat power plug on the plane, because it was not going to last me very long. And I'm playing Final Fantasy VI, dude. Like, come on. Windows battery life is so bad.
Like you could run that game on a watch, easily these days.
Come on. Ugh.
Oh man, I had my own issues traveling and gaming on Windows. I'm finally okay. This should give you some idea of how deep my game backlog is. I finally picked up Psychonauts 2.
Oh yeah, that's been a bit.
Yeah, it's been a bit. Anyway, the point is, I bought it back when it came out. So, man, what's Schaefer's company called again? Whatever, I don't know, his developer. So they got my money, so I supported the game. I loved Psychonauts 1. It was awesome. Anyway, so I finally picked it up, and my laptop was running it great. This thing has, I think, like a 4070 or something like that in it, like pretty powerful GPU, considering the thinness and the flexible form factor. So I've got it all like set up in front of me in like tent mode. And
nice.
I decided, and I regret this, but I decided when I was holding my Ally and my laptop and a controller, I was like, I have to bring my laptop anyway. So why don't I just game on my laptop? Yeah, why bother? They both support my external GPU thing with the 4080 or 4090 or whatever in it, the XG Mobile. So why wouldn't I just bring my laptop? That ended up not working out great at all. So first of all, when I tried to use my XG Mobile, I tripped the breaker on the airplane plug.
Oh.
So I wasn't able to use my external GPU anyway, because I guess it draws too much power, so that was irritating.
Yeah, my laptop's pretty low power.
Yeah, but that's fine, because I actually have a decent GPU on this thing anyway. But then, when I wanted to... So I was able to pair my controller, everything, that was fine. But this is hilarious. I was on the plane's Wi-Fi, and I guess we were flying China Air, because we were going over to Taiwan, and somehow the game... Okay, I don't know how this happened. Okay, I have no idea. But I am guessing that somehow the network that I was connected to picked up my time zone or location or something, and somehow the game picked that up, and I was speeding through the initial setup menus, and I accidentally selected Chinese for the language of the game, which normally wouldn't be that big of a deal. But seriously, Google this, I'm not imagining it. Psychonauts 2 buries the language configuration in the accessibility menu, like
accessibility menu.
Yeah, instead of just having it like kind of obvious.
Usually it's
like
pretty early.
If you're fighting your way, to try to change the bloody language. And because my phone wasn't actually connected to the internet, I couldn't just use Lens to translate it unless I bought another stupid Wi-Fi flight pass. Because they figured out my trick. So I had this hack that I used to use on airplanes to share one Wi-Fi access across all my devices. Windows is actually super cool, supports mobile hotspotting from Wi-Fi to Wi-Fi. So lots of other devices support being connected to a landline and then sharing and tethering over Wi-Fi, or being on 5G and tethering over Wi-Fi or whatever. But Windows supports sharing a Wi-Fi connection. I'm going to get to that, Top Gear. So anyway, somehow they've kind of figured that out, I guess, and they've done something with the Wi-Fi connection on most of the flights that I've been on recently that makes Windows think you're not connected. So the little globe in the corner is all like, nope, you're not connected. And then that grays out the mobile hotspot sharing thing. You can't force it, even though your connection totally works. And I couldn't find, I looked up guides, and I wasted I wasted a bunch of my expensive flight pass Wi-Fi trying to figure out how to bypass the blocks that they had on my expensive flight pass Wi-Fi. If anyone knows how to fix that, I'd be super open to it. Anyway, what did Top Gear say? Oh, shoot, I lost the comment I was going to get to. Oh, yeah. Top Gear says change the config file in Psychonauts. It doesn't work. So they have a guide that I Googled and found that if you want to change it to, I think it's French or German or something like that, you go in the config file and you just put language that, and then it will change to that language. But it doesn't appear to work for English, because I guess the assumption is just that it was already English and you were trying to change it to, I don't know, but it didn't work. So anyway, I eventually managed to change it, and I was gaming, and then the lights on the plane went out because it was like nighttime, time to sleep, and I went to adjust the brightness of my screen, and for some reason, whether it's because I'm using a third-party application now instead of Armory Crate on this thing, like it's, I forget what it's called, but it's super cool. Basically, it takes all of the nightmare of Armory Crate and boils it down to this tiny little interface here. Let me see if I can find it. Is this it? Nope. Yeah, here it is. G Helper. That's what it's called. So there. It takes all of Armory Crate. Update right now. Takes all of Armory Crate and makes it this, which is awesome. And like Armory Crate with the XG Mobile, the external GPU will sometimes get bugged. And you'll like plug it in, but it won't prompt you to activate it, or like it's plugged in and it won't prompt you to deactivate it, and like it's not safe to. I literally bricked a mobile GPU. That, remember when you tripped on it?
Yeah.
And it unplugged the mobile GPU?
Yeah.
If you unplug it expectedly, I think that one literally died because I never got it working again. So it really matters. So anyway, this lets you just override it. It just has a button, and you'd be like, XG Mobile, and it always works. So I don't know if it's because of this or because of something else, but I can't adjust my brightness when it's plugged in. So in the dark of the plane, I have like
this glowing,
the power of the sun beaming into my eyes, and then if I wanted to try to game on battery, dude, I'd have gotten less than an hour for sure. Like less than an hour out of this thing if I was actually trying to play a full fat 3D game. Maybe more than an hour, but like this is like a 10-hour flight. So I was like, well, I have nothing but bad options. I wish I just brought my stupid handheld. I forget what we were supposed to be talking about.
I think we're just complaining about Windows.
Oh yeah, so that well then I was doing great. Good job, Linus.
I will also bundle in that complaining about Windows means kind of complaining about the state of Windows laptops, because that's sort of what you're doing right now. And I will re-bring up what I now know is probably called the screen locking problem that I had with my laptop. I haven't.
Someone on the subreddit said it might be to do with your attention. Yeah. This.
I haven't had a chance to actually do this because this was uploaded. Like I was in the air by the time this was posted.
Cool.
So I haven't had a chance to do it, but this makes so much sense.
Yeah, so this is
I just believe it's it.
Yeah, this is a thing where like if you look away from the laptop, it blanks the screen.
But here's my problem.
Yeah.
I just think it basically doesn't work at all. That's my current stance on it, because it can be daytime and I'm staring right at it and it will just lock. It can be nighttime and I have something covering the webcam and it'll work just fine for like an hour and then randomly lock.
It's a fine line, dude, because as a company like Microsoft, right, you have to give your partners room to differentiate their products.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you might as well be Apple, right? You end up with no innovation.
You lose your special
But
sauce
you
a
also
little bit.
have to just like keep the leash at a reasonable length, because they're just going to do
This
dumb
is
shit.
so stupid. And my biggest problem with this is it doesn't tell you at all.
Right.
Like if you know, I slept the computer and woke it back up so that I could actually use it again, and then there was like a little ba-dung, and in the corner it was like, by the way, that was us.
But then you wouldn't want that to happen every time.
I could turn this off if I want to. I could also at that point in time say, don't
Never
tell me
prompt
this again.
me about this again.
But it would be really
Right.
sick if it told me at least one time. Because again, I haven't had time to change this setting. I pretty much guarantee you this is the actual problem. So like, no, I haven't tested it, but it makes so much sense that this would be it. Especially because I ran into the Hardware Canucks guys while I was at Computex.
Oh, yeah?
And one of them told me that they saw that bit on the show. They have a very similar version of a Lenovo laptop and have the exact same problem.
Okay, so it's probably that then.
Yes.
Probably the screen lock.
So
then.
now I have to go around and like tell everyone that I know that has this laptop, and a bunch of people have reached out being like, yeah, I have the same stupid problem. I've thought about returning it, blah, 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 blah. It's like, Lenovo, do you understand? Like, everyone thinks you suck, and it's just a software setting. Like, people think your laptops suck and are broken, and that's not even the case.
Dude,
outside of that, I love that laptop.
The amount of product problems that are caused seemingly by just nobody at the company actually using the product is mind-blowing.
It has to be the case here.
It's mind-blowing.
Or it's a problem where you have a overly informed expert.
Yeah, or that.
Where they know what this is.
Like,
so they just deal with it.
Yvonne is doing an iPhone challenge right now. So she just switched over to iPhone, and getting WhatsApp backed up and migrated between Android and iOS is like inexcusably broken. The fact that has, so she lost a bunch of message history. I lost a bunch of message history, even though I mostly know what I'm doing. Like it will say you backed up to it'll tell you what Google account it's backed up to. And then you go to restore it and it's like missing a bunch of stuff because there's like a specific way you have to do it when you're migrating between devices where you have to scan the QR code. So I didn't really screw up because the QR code was there and I was trying to scan it, but the camera was like blurry and there was no alternative. You have to scan the QR code. There's no other way. And then I wasn't able to do it. So I lost like 4 months of my message history because that part wasn't like backed up on that phone yet or something. And it had to restore from one other thing. And their backups are just broken. It's infuriating. Kara don't worry about my tennis elbow. I am intentionally moving it. I'm not doing anything in weird positions. I'm okay. And this is just like a massage thing. It's fine.
He's all right.
Yeah.
That made me think of something else I want to bring up, but
squeeze.
I'm not going to tangent us at this time, so I just add the note for later.
Hurts, but it's stronger. All right, what are we
Do you have
supposed to
any
be
more
doing?
Windows complaining to do?
No,
or should we jump into
I'm
another
ready
topic?
I'm ready to move on. I'm
All
ready to
right.
move on from Windows in general. If it wasn't for anti-cheat and just like application compatibility lock-in, I don't see why I would use it anymore.
If I could get away from multiple games that I play only working on Windows, and like genuinely right now, if I could get away from that, I would switch on my personal computer.
Maybe it's time for a Linux challenge again.
Another one?
Maybe it's time. I keep telling myself I'm going to wait for SteamOS. You know, like the broad, and it's coming. Like they have an installer that is now validated for non-Valve handhelds. And it does work on desktops as long as you've got a compatible desktop, which I kind of do actually. I think I have like a 79.
Does SteamOS actually
7950X
offer anything uniquely?
Does it what? Sorry?
Does it offer anything uniquely?
It offers being ready to go. Which
so you can still install like the like there's no special sauce just for SteamOS in relation to like Proton or anything like that.
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Yeah. Okay.
No, you should be able to have the full SteamOS experience on something else, pretty much, as long as you're willing to kind of configure it a little. But
yeah, I don't think it needs much. I feel like
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, and that's fine. We used different distros last time.
We totally did.
Yeah. I was trying to evaluate for myself, basically. Do I just want to use Mint again? Because, like, that's what I would want to do.
Right.
But then I want the best possible gaming setup. So, like, can I still do that on Mint?
You should be able to.
Probably.
And, like, realistically, you have more software troubleshooting capabilities than I do. So I would definitely lean toward the more set and forget, ready to go Linux distro.
I'm also, like, I don't know how this works, but even with like a 6-year gap between using Mint, it like immediately felt familiar again. So like I kind of want to go back to that thing.
Yeah.
Because like whatever way they've done it, Mint just like feels really good to me.
And what's nice about using a full desktop distro that's
like old Windows.
intended for that use case is that you're not going to be limited by some of the things that are not that way about SteamOS. Like SteamOS, to my knowledge, still doesn't have baked-in printer support.
Yeah, like I wonder if you're going to be running into like your aversion to wanting to set up things for gaming. I wonder if it's going to set you up for failure in other ways.
Yeah, could very well be. Admittedly, I didn't spend a long time, but I probably burned about half an hour trying to like install printer support on SteamOS because we were trying to use an ancient printer and we couldn't find a Windows driver that worked. I was like, right, Linux. What's the closest Linux machine that I have? A Steam Deck. I'll just plug it into a Steam Deck.
Yeah.
And it totally didn't work.
Yeah. Someone in Full Plane Chat said doing it on, I don't know what they mean by it, but I'm assuming they mean like Proton stuff. Doing it on Mint for the last 3 months, super easy so far. Hell yeah.
So, of course, we have the Xbox Showcase coming up on the 8th, which is on Sunday. We also have Summer Games Fest on the 6th, I believe, and we've got a bunch of showcases and stuff happening. But one of the things people have been expecting, kind of ready for, is Bethesda and their presence at that showcase. Now, some are, I think, I'm in this camp. We're thinking that they just showcase Starfield Expansion number 2, which might offer 6 hours of gameplay this time and more paid mods and stuff, but who knows? I'm not expecting much, okay? But there's been a couple of people that have been stirring the hype pot, suggesting that we might see something even bigger. And I want to know your thoughts on this because I'm not sure if I buy it. The first suggestion from some is that we're going to see a Fallout 3 remake reveal. That is not impossible, but I think that almost certainly is coming next year. I don't think that they're doing it this year. They already did the Oblivion remake this year, or remaster. I don't think that they will drop 2 within like a 12-month period. I just don't think they need to. So I'd be surprised if that happens, but it's not impossible. The other one that I'd be shocked to see was echoed by Juicehead, which is if you don't know Juicehead, he's a YouTuber, does a lot of like Bethesda coverage, RPG coverage and stuff. And he said, we might see a trailer for Elder Scrolls 6 next week. What's the over-under on this? I have to know. Let's do a straw poll. Straw poll. You ready? Do we see, not GTA, geez, Elder Scrolls 6? I guess at this point it's this week for the showcases. Yes. I'm not doing a no, or I'm not doing a maybe, okay? Not doing a maybe. We're not gonna cheap out like that, okay? And then I'm gonna post it into the chats so everybody can vote, okay? There you go. It is in both chats. Yeah, it's the overwhelming consensus is no, which is my expectation as well. And mainly it's just that I like, oh, they're not doing auto refresh anymore. Oh, that's weird. They used to do auto refresh. Now they make me click a button. I'm too lazy for this. But I think it's very, very unlikely. Very, very unlikely. But it's not like they're just throwing this out for no reason, okay? As you can see, there's some commentary here. With Starfield DLC and Outer Worlds 2 taking the main focus, and probably Fallout Season 2 trailers, that's a lot to not distract from each other. Plus, most predictions say that The Elder Scrolls 6 is 2027, so it's early to show the game more versus returning to as close to release as possible strategy. No? And he replied, I don't think we see Fallout Season 2 trailer. Starfield was 2023, and I had trailers at the 21 and 22 showcases. If The Elder Scrolls 6 is 2026, I could see a trailer late into the showcase as a bit of a mic drop moment that helps people justify staying subbed to Game Pass till next year. And this is not the first time Juicehead has mentioned the 2026 release date for Elder Scrolls 6. I wonder if I can find another one. But there's been other times where he has specifically said that he thinks that there might be the chance for Elder Scrolls 6 coming out next year. Use Grok. Oh, that's a good idea. Hold on. We'll ask Grok. Find any tweets, or he'll get mad if I say tweets, posts from @Juicehead, I think it was 33, about Elder Scrolls 6, where he suggests it could come out in 2026. Because I might be totally crazy. But I'm pretty sure he's had other times where he suggested it. Oh yeah, look at this. Dude, Grok is so cool. March 4th, just in March. One of the biggest reasons I think we could see Elder Scrolls 6 in 2026 is if there is a push internally for it to be a launch title for the next-gen Xbox. That seems like a marketing deal for them. And then May 31st, I don't think we see Fallout 2. Oh, that's the one we just alluded to. Yeah, his prediction, let's see, timeline back in 2021, Starfield in 2021. This is about the FTC documents, to be clear. I think the timeline for Bethesda games is bound to change. Them having their billion-dollar IPs lay dormant for a decade plus seems like it has to end. I imagine Microsoft by affects this. Oh no, this isn't about the FTC stuff. This was just a prediction in February of 2021. This is funny. Michael, I think you're way too optimistic with that timeline. Definitely don't see the Elder Scrolls 6 until at least 2025. Oops. It ended up being correct. I honestly have no idea. I get that argument because of how ambitious it is, but then Bethesda's 4x in employee count, and of course the Microsoft buy, definitely will be interesting to see the first proper BGS Microsoft game with the Elder Scrolls 6. Yeah. Oh, from scratch, I guess from scratch, yeah. They got to be having someone else working on a Fallout game, right? They were. Maddie was right. But hey, the point is, he suggested at least on 2 occasions now that 2026 could happen. Do I think he has any secret knowledge? I don't personally suspect as much, but some people have hinted at, oh, he does so much Bethesda content, maybe he knows something. I'm not sure if I buy that. Rather, I think what's most likely is still that 2027 to 2028 timeline. And I'm basing that off of just, I think at this point, the fact that Bethesda's output has slowed despite their headcounts increasing. It seems that their productivity has lessened as they've increased in headcount, which is not how that's supposed to work, like at all. Typically, when you add like increasing headcounts and the chart goes up, you see your productivity growing, maybe not the same level, but it is growing maybe at a diminishing rate. So it slows as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, but you're still increasing significantly, right? Like the more people you add, the better you're doing. With Bethesda, though, it's kind of been the opposite, where they started expanding and then their productivity started to go down. as they hired more. Like, the stuff they put out is even buggier. The quests they're putting out are broken. It takes them months to fix anything. They do a Fallout Next Gen update. It's still broken. It's frankly amazing. They spend an entire year on DLC for Starfield, and it produces like 5 hours of content, amazingly enough. When just in 2016 with the Fallout 4 DLC, they put out 2 expansions in the same period of time that collectively had way more original content in them. Like, it's bizarre, but their productivity actually drops the more people they hire, seemingly. So my understanding is that, you know, this isn't as simple as just, well, they have more employees now, so they can do more. I don't think that that's a thing. Now, it could be revealed this week if they're going to do the same thing they did with Starfield, where they reveal it and then do like 2 years of trailers and reveals before it releases. It's possible, because that would put it 2027, which I think is more likely. But the 2026 release date, I'm iffy on. They might do something where they're like, oh yeah, they drop a trailer at the Xbox showcase and like, yeah, 2026, please, for the love of God, stay subscribed to Game Pass. And then they just will delay it to 2027, let's be honest. But maybe they do that. But as for actually releasing next year, I don't think there's much of a chance of that. I'd be very, very, very surprised by that. Will, that slow in production confirms what former devs have said about how complicated development pipeline is. Too many hands and too many approvals. Yeah, Will. Yeah. It's too many cooks in the kitchen, I think, is one of the big components of it. And that's why I found that talk from CDPR so interesting about the development of Phantom Liberty, because they talk about how they had to completely restructure the company to get that project out the door, because the traditional way of doing things by department didn't work anymore. So they had to create strike teams where they had one person from, you know, the animation team, one person from the questing team, a writer in there, a programmer in the strike team. And then they would go through the game working together, almost like mini indie teams, all collectively working on the one big thing, right?
$9.99 through Super Chat. I think they shadow drop Foe 3 in a few years. For S6, if it's 2027-2028, I could see them dropping a trailer, but they don't have a release window. Xbox has a history of showing games way too
early. Yeah, I don't think we have to wait a few years for Fallout 3. I would expect probably next year would be my guess for Fallout 3, late next year. As for Elder Scrolls 6, yeah, 2027 to 28, I could see them dropping a trailer, but they don't have a release window. Xbox has a history of showing games too early. Yeah, well, it's also just something that they kind of need to do, because they need to keep people subscribed, of course, and the way you keep people subscribed is by justifying the subscription in their mind. So every time that they pause and they go, you know, I'm not using Game Pass much, I could unsub, save the $20 a month or whatever tier you're at. But then you want them to pause and go, well, but Elder Scrolls 6 is coming out soon, and Call of Duty is on it. I do play Call of Duty every once in a while with my friends, and, you know, I'll keep it. You know, they just need a couple of like mental roadblocks to prevent you from unsubscribing. Just a couple. And I think by revealing some of this stuff early, they can keep you hooked. My prediction for one of the big surprise, maybe surprisingly captivating games of the show is actually one that they've shown a lot, one that I'm very optimistic about. As you can see, Clobriel posted a GIF of it, the gameplay stuff they did reveal, which is State of Decay 3. I played the crap out of the first State of Decay. State of Decay 2 was also good, but it's kind of broken at launch. It had some problems. But State of Decay, they've been working on this for a long time. For a very long time. And if it ends up being just a really polished State of Decay, I'm here for this. I'm here for it. Okay? It'd be so good. It'd be so good. Yeah, Loxy, it'd be great. So, fingers crossed. But I mean, going back to Elder Scrolls 6, I just think there is at a certain point, I don't think there's been enough time. Starfield came out 2023, and no doubt they started working on Elder Scrolls 6 pretty immediately after that. You know, they had some teams working on the expansion and the rover and stuff, but you know, they started working on Elder Scrolls 6 after that, and that, you know, if it releases next year, we're going to say that they threw the thing together in like 3 years. I'm not sure I believe that. I mean, Maybe, but I mean, maybe I should put it this way. An Elder Scrolls game made in 3 years is probably not the one you want. Just saying. The one you want probably takes like, 4 or 5 years. I don't see how the Bethesda that took a year to make Shattered Space and made Starfield, I don't see how they can pump out a 10 out of 10 Elder Scrolls game in 3 years. I just don't personally see it. He took my thing. Red flag, red flag.
16 times the detail.
So, Hell Is Us is the game that when we saw it revealed, I think it was Gamescom or Summer Games Fest last year, we were like, oh, it looks like Death Stranding mixed with Stalker, mixed with Fallout. Like, it was a very weird, trippy sort of game. Maybe like a little Once Human in there. It's very weird. But they have another round of previews out, and they also just dropped a demo, which I have installed to play live for all of you. And they also revealed some performance recommended PC specs, which are crazy. Okay, like some of these are insane. Their ultra settings, which to be fair is ultra, this is supposed to be top tier. Their ultra achieves 4K 30. I don't know if it always used upscaling. So this is with upscaling. With upscaling to hit 4K 30 ultra, you need a 4090. Woof. Woof. Okay, so we're gonna boot it up. I have a 4090 in this PC. We'll see how it runs, if this is maybe overly conservative. But if it really needs upscaling to hit those levels, that's insane. But we'll test it ourselves. But first, I want to look at this very little snippet from GameSpot about their preview. I believe playing the same snippet of gameplay. So let's see what they have to say.
People love to categorize games. It used to be pretty easy. You had your platformers, shooters, sports games, and RPGs. Then we started saying things like Metroidvania. Fast forward to today, and burgeoning genres and new ideas led to phrases like deck builder roguelite, strand game, and Souls-like. These labels are useful to get a quick idea of what a game is, but it gets complicated when you're confronted with something like Hell Is Us. I played 3 hours of Rogue Factor's upcoming title at a recent press event in Montreal, and I walked away thinking it defies easy categorization.
I realize I did this very thing by describing it as a Death Stranding meets Fallout meets Stalker game. So I realize I'm also doing this now. But I think the reason people do this is because the industry is so competitive.